Chapter 3:26. Floria and Freya were both surprised by their rankings. Even 7 months after the events with Nailier, they still had to completely recover. The girls felt they were just scraping by, following Litha's study schedule only because it was too boring to waste the whole day drowning in self-pity. Who would have ever thought that practicing first magic every day would have improved so much our performances? Freya kept staring at the paper Lith had handed them a few days ago. "I did," he replied from the bathroom. "My problem during the 4th year was my lack of mana perception, yours of mana control. Practicing first magic fixed that." Floria nodded. She too regretted having always considered first magic just like servant's magic. If only she practiced it more, she could have achieved so much during the first 4 years of academy. Their parents took the news enthusiastically. They couldn't wait to celebrate the happy event. Lith came out of the bathroom wearing only his pants. During the last year, he had grown even taller and was now 1.75 meters, 5 feet 9 inches high, almost as much as Floria. The vision made Freya yelp and turn beet red. Litha's face was still sharp, his eyes cruel, but when he didn't look at you with the intention to kill, he could be considered good-looking. His body was another story. Between the physical training with Floria and the core refinement, it was a sight to behold. No impurities meant no imperfections during the growth spurt. No moles, no excess body hair or fat. Every inch of his body was chiseled like that of an Olympic athlete at his prime. "Why don't you cover up?" she said, turning half sideways, looking at him with one eye only. "First, this is my room. Second, you should be used to my presence as much I am to yours since we spend almost all day together. Third, I have the right to hit on my girlfriend." His answer made Floria giggle like a little girl. Freya, not so much. "Do you need my help again?" Floria caressed his face. "Yes." Lith sighed. Growth spurt also meant a growing beard, but unlike on Earth, his new body produced one like he was already 20. It wasn't just a few hairs. It only needed a couple of days to turn into a stubble for it to start itching. To make things worse, Lith couldn't resort to magic for shaving. Magic couldn't hurt its owner, and the beard was still part of his body. So he had Floria do it for him with air magic. That way, it would only take a couple of seconds to shave, and it would also reinforce their mutual trust. For Lith, exposing his throat, that was a leap of faith. Freya knew it, and her heart was riddled with envy from start to finish. It peaked when they shared a passionate kiss after Floria finished without inflicting him even a small cut. Ever since Balkier's attack, she had been jealous of them. Over time, the feeling had only grown. At first, she disliked Lith. He was too shady and had too many secrets. Then she had learned to appreciate him as a friend and a brother in arms. After Nailier, though, things got so much worse. The multiple RP attempts Freya suffered had left a deep scar in her heart. She had become much warier of those who approach her, and thanks to Journey's teachings, she could easily spot the greed or lust in the eyes of her suitors. All things that made the faces of her assailants pop in front of her eyes again, making her almost puke. She could never forget those eyes, staring at her like a thing to possess, as she was nothing more than her body or her title. It killed all the chances she had got so far to have a boyfriend, leaving her utterly alone. After spending so much time together during the 5th year, Freya felt she was to a dangerous crossroad. Between still don't like him as a boy as much as for what he represented and really like him. Lith was never condescending with her, never tried to impress her or to hide his real nature. He always treated Freya as a person and a friend. That, plus his body and her being single from birth, had a huge impact on Freya over time. "Shouldn't you go change for the evening?" Lith asked while a thick black and white substance crawled up his skin, taking the form of a black evening suit with a white shirt. "Is that the new evening clothes the royals sent you?" Freya asked. "Yes." Lith was appreciating the tailor-made suit and its silky fabric. While the Ernas had their own tailor and bought their own clothes, Lith would always use the "I'm a poor commoner" excuse to have someone buy them for him. "There is no point in wasting money for something that I'll wear maybe twice in my life," was his reasoning. Truth to be told, he was still a cheapskate at heart. "I should buy one of those things too. It looks a bit disgusting with those lifelike movements, but it would save me a lot of time. You have no idea how long does it takes to wear a corset, stockings, and fixing all those frills." Freya sighed in envy, leaving the room. Floria came out of the bathroom wearing a silk satin red evening dress and white evening gloves, emphasizing her olive-colored skin due to the prolonged exposure to the sun. It was skin-tight, with a neckline that somehow exerted a push-up effect. She wore part of her hair down, like a silky black waterfall that reached her tights, while the rest formed a tress resembling a wreath over her head. It was decorated with flower-shaped small jewels. Litha's golden lily pendant was the only necklace she wore, drawing the attention on her slim neck. "How do I look?" she asked with a tinge of red on her cheeks. "Stunning, like always," he said, embracing her before giving her a long, deep kiss. "How did you fix your hair so fast?" "You know how, silly." Floria went in front of the mirror to finish the last details. Since she was already fully developed, Litha's treatment had a limited effect on her. It still made Floria heel to ear, her skin smoother, and her hair didn't tangle anymore. She only needed a couple of brushstrokes to fix them as she wanted. After Floria checked the back of her dress, she made sure Litha's pins were placed at the eye level of an average man and properly emphasized by the black suit. Then, they went to pick Freya up. She was wearing a long-sleeved light blue evening dress with no neckline. It left exposed only her hands, neck, and shoulders. Journey had to fight a lot to dress her up with something more cheerful than a battle monk suit. Freya didn't want people looking at her for a second more than necessary. The dress had only the minimum requirement of embroidered jewels and frills to make it a court gala dress. Even with little to no makeup and all her efforts to be as inconspicuous as possible, she was still lovely. The skin-tight dress brought out her soft curves while its color emphasized her brown eyes. Chapter 3:27. They reached the warp gate leading outside the academy, where their chaperones were waiting for them. The girls would bring along their parents, while Lith had asked to Marchioness Distar and Count Lark to be his escort. Raz and Alina were too busy with a newborn errand, plus they were completely oblivious about the court etiquette. Bringing them along would be like inviting disaster to dinner. "Thank you so much, dear Lith." Count Lark didn't seem to have aged a day. His black suit was brand new, and so was the silk string preventing him to lose his black-rimmed monocle, which kept jumping out of his eye socket from excitement. "I never attended a royal graduation ceremony before. I'll never thank you enough for giving me this opportunity." "Don't mention it, old friend," Lith replied. "If it wasn't for you, I would have never attended an academy. I'm glad to have you by my side today and to be able to call someone like you a friend. If you or your family ever need my help, you just have to ask." Lark had to fight back the tears. Litha's words moved him deeply. Lith turned around, needing but a glance to notice something was out of place. Marchioness Distar had the smug grin you would expect from someone accompanying the 3 highest rankers in all the Griffin Kingdom. Journey looked at the two youths with the usual eyes full of expectations, like she hoped Lith had already proposed to Floria or was about to. The odd thing was that instead of the polite and detached attitude usually Orion gave Lith, he seemed to be as eager as Journey, if not more. Lith shrugged it off as one of the many false flags, as Paranoia pointed out. The warp gate lead them directly inside the royal palace, just a few rooms away from the banquet hall. The battle mages and mage knights in charge of security didn't care for Journey's royal constable badge. Only after checking thoroughly their IDs and communication amulets, the guards let them know. While waiting for the background checks to be over, Lith looked around the room. Disgusting. Despite this place is just a waiting room, it's so full of gold and artworks to be tacky, at least by my standards. He thought, "That's just because you are stingy." Solus reproached him. "The room is furnished with proper taste. It resembles the royal palace of Versailles from your memories, not a rapper's house. Royals have the duty to not only be powerful, but also to appear as such." The path towards the banquet hall was filled with marvels. Solus noticed at least 50 different arrays and countless magical treasures hidden inside the walls. To think that Balkier could bypass all this and attempt on the royals' lives 5 years in a row makes you understand how powerful he is. Lith and Solus thought as one. The double doors leading inside were wide open. Before they could enter, A valet checked their IDs again before announcing their arrival, speaking with a magically enhanced voice. The room was more than 40 meters, 133 feet, long and over 30 meters, 100 feet, wide, with a single red silk carpet with gold embroidered edges going from the 3 meters, 10 feet, wide double doors up to the 2 steps that distanced the floor where nobles stood and the raised one for the royal family. That way, even while sitting, they would be able to look down on everyone present, reaffirming their status and authority. The whole room was lighted by crystal chandeliers, fueled by magic, leaving no space for shadows or need for maintenance. On the walls, magically enchanted tapestries would recount over and over the great feats that the current king had accomplished to be deemed worthy of his power. Both the floor and the pillars of the room were realized from gold veined marble, the most precious and robust material available in the Griffin Kingdom. The room was filled with nobles of all ages and relevance, who quickly swarmed the 3 youths like vultures after spotting a fresh corpse. How does it feel being blessed by the light? Were you afraid while fighting the wyvern? How did you survive a valor on your own? First Balkir, then Nalier. Did witnessing so much death change your attitude in life? Those were the questions he had to answer over and over again. He felt like a school shooting survivor forced to reply to the dumbest questions a reporter's mind could come up with to boost their audience. The evening was long and boring enough to make Lith wish to never attend such an event again. I'd rather work the whole night as an association's clerk. He thought doing small talk with the students from other academies. Only when the music started, Lith managed to get away with the excuse of dancing. He hated dancing, yet he had long prepared for it with Floria since the 4th year. To get what he wanted, Lith had to play by the rules. At least apparently. Lith had researched Nalier's past. Despite being a talented awakened one, despite having no bonds after abandoning her family, she had failed even to become an influential noble. The Griffin Kingdom, even with all of its faults, was too big to face it head-on alone. He danced with Floria first, and then with other noble dames, tried to establish their worth as connections. Solus would jot down their names, titles, add everything relevant they said, which usually amounted to very little. After a while, Lith took a couple of drinks and went together with Floria on a balcony to get some fresh air. She seemed to be more annoyed than he was, if not even sad. Lith's instinct raised another flag, this time too big to ignore. Cheer up. This nightmare will not last long. Worst-case scenario, we'll be back home in 2 more hours. He said, I am sorry. Lith knew Floria enough to know that whatever she was talking about, she meant it. Sorry about what? I wanted to wait until the gala ended before telling you, but I don't want our last memory together to be us quarreling. Her voice was sad. Only after taking a deep breath, she looked Lith in the eyes. Okay, what the FCK are you talking about? He touched her arm while activating invigoration. She was fit as a fiddle, just like the last time he checked. Her impurities were still so far from the core, it was impossible for her to have awakened and being turned by the royals in some sort of secret weapon. The academy is over. In less than 2 days, I'm going back home. After that, I'll start the Army's mandatory booth camp for new recruits. It will last 6 months with no breaks nor leaves. Then I'll be dispatched where my talents are needed. I don't know how long will it take for me to join the Knights Guard, nor it will be fair on you pretending things are going to stay the same. I think it's best if we break up before I leave the academy. Lith was speechless, feeling like a big chunk of his heart had just been ripped off from his chest. Chapter 328. Pain was Lith's oldest friend, yet it took him a few seconds to recover. I thought you wouldn't leave before spring. Lith was looking forward to spending the winter months together at her home again. The army is not the academy. Silly. Floria's laugh was low and joyless. There are boot camps all year round, so that people can enlist as soon as they become adults. Why didn't you tell me this earlier? Why now? Can't you delay it? What would have changed? Floria sighed. We would have spent the time we had left arguing before you accepted my decision, as I know you will. She slowly caressed his face. Then you would be sulking the whole time. This way we had our happiness. As for your other questions, I need to go as soon as possible. Not because of my family, nor for the army. For myself. Floria stared at the moon glowing up in the sky. Her voice was steeled with resolve. Ever since I joined the academy, I fancied myself a leader. Yet right from the mock exam, I found myself lacking. Resolve, charisma, killing intent, tactics. Name one. I was good only on paper. All my training rarely survived contact with the enemy. I was either too scared, surprised, or reluctant to kill to be a good leader. Our whole group relied more on you than on me, myself included. Whenever something bad happened, I always looked up to my family and to you for help. After Uriel's death, I only found solace from my inner demons while in your company, and that made me think. I'm not as strong and independent as I always wanted to be. I don't feel complete as a person. I'm tired of feeling helpless. I need to change, or at least give my all trying. Joining the army will give me this opportunity. Failure or success will depend completely on myself. Lith could feel his heart going through its usual routine. Pain first, anger later. It's her life. She has every right of doing what she thinks is best for herself. Lith thought, it's exactly what I have been planning to do from the beginning. I never changed my mind, not even after we got together. I knew this moment would come. Then why am I suffering so much? Because you have ended up caring for them more than you ever anticipated. Especially Floria. Solus replied, you can't get angry at her. It would be petty and hypocritical. I don't know where life will lead me. Even worse, I don't know what will become of you. Floria kept staring at Mogur's moon. That night, it was of an unusual pale blue color, giving the night the feel of a fairy tale. You said it yourself, remember? I guess you're the right person for me, but we met at the wrong time of our lives. There are too many variables. We are both too ambitious to plan ahead and shackle ourselves with a pointless long-distance relationship. I want to be happy. I want you to be happy. We can't waste our time waiting for each other and fantasizing about what might have been. Life is short. Uriel taught us that. Maybe we'll meet again in the future. Until then, I want you to have the chance to live your life at its fullest. If you meet someone special, I want you to be able to give her the love she deserves. Floria took his hand, expecting him to be sad or even angry. What she found in his eyes was the look of someone who felt betrayed. Did you tell me all of this now to prevent me from making a scene? Litha's allegation was cruel enough to make him and Solus both add Petty as his middle name. No, I did it only because I hope you can get over it before we go back home and not spoil our last days together. Her voice was calm. Litha's words had hurt her, but Floria didn't let it show. Lith gritted his teeth, knowing she was right. In any other moment, he would have been ranting, probably holding a grudge for who knows how long. I'm sorry for what I just said. Now if you'll excuse me, I want to be alone. Floria left him with his thoughts. Lith remained there for a while. The winter cold couldn't affect his enhanced physique, and even if it did, the skinwalker armor would protect him. Excuse me, sir, said a voice behind him. What do you want? Lith turned around, towering over the valet. In the royal court, even servants were actually nobles from important families. Serving the crown was the highest honor. The valet was actually a duke with remarkable magical talents, yet he found himself shivering in fear. Litha's eyes were brimming with power and rage. Behind all that mana, the valet could clearly see Lith fighting the temptation to throw him off the balcony. His Majesty would like to confer with you, sir. The valet kept his cool, managing to deliver the message despite the profuse sweating affecting him at the moment. Lith calmed down immediately, letting the man make way to his host. Inside, the music was over. All the convened guests were gathered near the raised floor where the royals were now standing. Today is a very special day, the king said with his deep, baritone voice as soon as Lith reached the front row with the servants' help. Today, simple men and women have become mages. It doesn't matter if they were commoners, merchants, or nobles. Now they stand here among us as equals. Whatever path they take, they're the embodiment of the future of our kingdom. I hope for all of them to achieve great things, to become what our country will need during its darkest hours to come. Alone we are nothing. Together we are the most ancient kingdom in the Galen continent. While others suffered from internal strife or lack of resources, we thrived. The only reason this miracle has endured the passing of centuries is that we never stopped improving ourselves. Those assembled here are the most powerful individuals of our kingdom, but it's important for you to remember that without the people, we are nothing. Each one of our families was once a commoner one. We elevated ourselves with talent and hard work. Such an opportunity must always be offered to the worthy ones, no matter how humble their origins. If we allow our fears or petty grudges to influence our actions, the Griffin Kingdom will wither and fall. Tonight, there is a rare talent among us. Some say he has been blessed by the light at birth. I don't know if it's true, nor do I believe in superstitions. What I do know is that when we needed him, he helped us all, even at the risk of his own life and family. Lith inwardly grinned. I doubt King Marone is so naive as to believe me, so altruistic. We have bartered every time the price for my help. When I have taken risks, it was only because the alternative was worse. I like his selling pitch, though. Chapter 329. Step forward, Lith of Lucia. Lith did as instructed, kneeling in front of the raised floor as the ceremony required. King Marone placed his right hand over Lith's head while holding the staff, representing the crown's authority over magic in the other. For your services in curing the plague, for saving many lives during Balkir's last attack, and for your contribution in defending the White Griffin, I hereby award you the Verhen name. It will be extended to your family and passed down by your children. It grants to you, and to you alone, the same status of a baron. Your starting fief will be the region of Lucia, under Count Lark's supervision, should you ever decide to trade your merits for the lands and responsibilities that a noble title implies. Stand up, Mage Lith Verhen. Lith did as ordered. The members of the royal family applauded him, immediately followed by a standing ovation from the guests. Lith was supposed to be happy. Another milestone in his master plan had fallen into place. Yet he felt empty, meaningless, just like the sound of his new name. The following morning, the trio was in Floria's room. The girls were making their final preparations for the tournament, while Lith had been using accumulation non-stop since the previous night. Taking deep breaths was the only way he and Solus had found to keep his emotions in check. There was still a storm brewing inside of him, and as it was for any storm, stopping it was impossible. Lith could only wait for it to pass. Do you still suffer from death vision? Freya said as she came out of the training room. She and Floria had just finished a light spar as warm-up. Lith nodded. Over time, he had shared a few details about himself with her. In the space of a few seconds, Lith saw her die of poisoning, old age, and by decapitation. What about now? She asked multiple times, coming closer and closer until at 3 meters distance Lith shook his head. Freya was alive and well now. What about her? Freya pointed at Floria, who was still in the training room. She's fine. I knew it. Freya snorted. I bet that the safe zone range depends on how much you care for the person. I guess 3 meters after 2 years is still better than nothing. Lith didn't agree with her theory, yet he found it interesting. Back when death vision started, he would see everyone die, even his family, no matter the distance. For a long time, the only exception had been Floria, but only when she was very close to him. Over time, though, he had learned to control it with his willpower. Also, Lith had developed a safe zone, where people would appear normal as long as they were within its range. Lith and Solus thought it depended on him mastering whatever death vision was, while Freya had a more romantic concept of it. Who do you think will win if we both get into the finals? Floria tried to change the topic. If her sister was right, it would make breaking up even more awkward. Do you want the cold truth or the boyfriend truth? His voice was slow, so he wouldn't lose his breathing rhythm. Cold truth. The girls replied as one. It's a coin flip. Floria, you have a better technique, while Freya has more fighting spirit. Since you are both mage knights, you'll want close combat. At that distance, a single strike can seal the result. Neither of the girls liked the answer. Freya because she was aware of her limits. Floria because she hoped he would be more supportive. What if you had a bet? Solus asked. In that case, with a sword at my throat, I'd bet on Freya. She has a lot of pent-up stress and a tendency to become more aggressive because of it. Floria had a lot on her mind. I doubt she can show her full strength right now. especially against her own sister. Solus sighed. The only thing that she hated more than a murderous Lith was an emotionless one. The tournament took place in the Academy's Coliseum. It was a huge arena located on the ground floor of the White Griffin that was usually off limits outside special events. Duels and fights were a relic of the past, relegating the use of the Coliseum to be exclusively ceremonial. To everyone's surprise, the whole royal family was attending the event. Headmaster Marth offered to the king the role of arbiter for the event, but Marone politely declined. Spectating was one thing. Participating in the event would mean giving it special importance, hurting the pride of the other academies. Both girls fought fiercely, showing that the point difference between them and the other rankers wasn't just a fluke. They literally wiped the floor with any opponent they faced in 10 moves at worst. Linjos's legacy, the daily evaluation, was showing its worth in all the academies that employed its system. It forced the students to give their all every day rather than cram the month before the exams and just learn by rote. As Lith predicted, when Freya and Floria fought in the finals, Floria was unable to consider it more than a spar, losing to Freya's ruthlessness. Being right didn't make him happy. He was actually sad for her. The result only proved Floria was right too. She was still too soft. The royals applauded both contenders, giving House Ernest double the honor any other household had ever achieved in the Academy's history. Never before had 2 of the first 3 rankers belonged to the same family. It pissed off everyone present that wasn't part of the Academy's staff, the Ernas, or the royal family. Commoners and nobles alike had hoped that since the top ranker wouldn't attend, they would still have a chance to shine. It was truly a magnificent competition, Your Majesty. Sitting next to King Marone, there was Archduke Tabin, family head of one of the most ancient households of the Griffin Kingdom and the father of the girl ranked 4th. It's too bad the first ranker didn't attend. Right, Zebas? Indeed. It would have made an excellent show. Marchioness Zebas belonged to an almost as important family, and her son was ranked 5th. Marth, why don't you ask him for an exhibition match? You can't leave your guests of honor with a curiosity about what the brightest talent of the White Griffin can do. The 2 nobles didn't give a damn about Lith. Their aim was to embarrass House Ernest. Journey and Orion not only had received plenty of awards for defeating Nalier, but now their daughters were stealing all the spotlight. It was more than what the other households could bear. Not that they could bear much anyway. The higher they got, the touchier they became. It's an interesting idea. King Marone scratched his beard. Chapter 330. I would like to see Mage Lith in action, but it would be unfair on the Erna's girls. Their fight was intense and drawn out. They must be exhausted. The king wasn't an idiot. He immediately saw through their intentions and turned their plot against them. It's not only that. Queen Silpha chimed in. The Ernas and Verhen households have quite a past together. We can't ruin their friendship on a whim. My dear queen is right, Tabin. Marone nodded. If your daughter passed the semi-finals, she would still have to fight an opponent. She can spar with him and show us her worth. They both can. Silpha pointed out. It was their parents' idea, after all. It's only fair for them to provide us with a show. The nobles and Lith both inwardly cringed. Neither wanted to agree, but refusing wasn't an option. Lith and Clea Tabin stepped into the arena together, placing themselves 10 meters from each other. The royals were really curious about Lith's real skills, so they used binoculars to shield their eyes and activate life vision. The girl was tall and muscular. Like Floria, she had the build of a professional swimmer. Is this safe, Headmaster? Lith asked. I'm not used to exhibitions. I don't know if I can hold back. Any fight outside of training, I've always gone straight for the kill. Very safe. Besides the life-preserving array of the Academy, there's also the first blood array of the Coliseum. As soon as one of you gets hit, the fight ends. Marth wasn't happy either, but when the royals gave an order, he could only comply. Are you ready? He asked both youths. Lith's reply was a deep, guttural roar. It released all the stress and the killing intent he had kept sealed up to that point. Easy there. Be careful to not release an aura. Solus warned him. During the 5th year, they had discovered that, unless fake mages used a spell, they were incapable of spreading their mana outside their bodies. Journey, or Ian, and Floria were the only ones to have seen Lith and Nalier both doing it. It was a dangerous tale about being an awakened one. Lith's killing intent sent a shiver down the spectators' spines despite the distance separating them from the arena. Marth took the brunt of it due to his proximity, but as a battle-hardened veteran, he was able to hold his ground. The girl, however, was paralyzed. Begin. The headmaster's voice snapped her out of it. Clea began to cast a Tier 4 Battle Mage spell while stepping backward. Lith is only a Forge Master and a healer. If I don't let him get close, it's my win, she thought. Unfortunately for her, Lith sprinted forward at a barely human speed of 10 meters per second, covering the distance between them in an instant. All Clea could see was Lith's open palm striking her chin from below before her vision became a blur. He grabbed Clea's face, lifted her up with one hand, and slammed her head into the ground with one fluid movement. Then, everything went black. Marth intervened immediately. Both arrays had activated at once, which saved her life, but Clea's condition was still critical. Her jaw was just dislocated while her skull was fractured in several points. "Come here," Lith said while taunting his other opponent as soon as Marth got Clea out of the arena, leaving her in Vaster's care. Leo Zebas had fallen on his ass after Lith's roar and had yet to find the strength to get up. "I yield," he squealed, putting an end to the exhibition. The royals didn't bother hiding their disappointment, applauding the contestants purely out of courtesy. Martianus Zebas was pale as a ghost. At least the Tebin's heir had attempted to fight, while her son had cowardly backed down in front of all her peers. Archduke Tebin didn't share her optimism. He had clearly heard the queen clicking her tongue in disgust at her daughter's performance. "What an idiot," Silphus said, loud enough for the two nobles to hear. "Like a magical beast, or even an enemy soldier would be polite enough to give you the time to complete such a complex spell. She should have restricted his movements first." "Cut them some slack, dear," King Marone replied. The difference in battle experience was like heaven and earth. Also, they probably have yet to recover from Nalier's attack. The kindness in Marone's words was merely superficial. He was actually agreeing with his wife, saying that Lith's opponents were both physically and mentally weak. Tebin and Zebas turned even paler, recognizing the true meaning of those words. Yet they could only curse at their own stupidity. With their behavior, the royals had sent a message. The Ernest household was under their protection. As for Lith, after basically proclaiming him as a national hero just a day prior, now they had referred to him as a proper household in front of many witnesses. Messing with him was barely safer than sticking their heads in a dragon's mouth. Royal Palace, 1 hour later. It's a shame Lith's opponents were so weak. I guess we'll never know if he really is an awakened one or not. King Marone was still upset. He had seen foot soldiers perform much better than Clea Zebas. "We didn't have much to work with." Queen Silpha nodded. "He was fast, for a human, but nothing more. His mana flow is weaker than ours. Only Lith's life force was remarkable. Yet him being so tall and young makes that unsurprising." "What do you think we should do about Lith?" Marone asked. "Treat him as if he isn't awakened. I'm willing to bet he really is one, even though Lady Tyrus says otherwise." "How so?" The king had reached the same conclusion on his own. They were having that conversation in front of their children as a learning experience. Even though it was unlikely for Lady Tyrus to select one of them as the next ruler, they would still play a major role in the kingdom's future. Because too many things do not add up. His achievements are too outstanding for someone his age. Plus, based on what Captain Yerna and Constable Ernest said, his mastery of the Gatekeeper Sword's powers is unnatural for a fake mage. Even if I'm wrong, even if he is just the combat-oriented version of Manohar, Lith is still a good investment. His sister's gotten admitted to the White Griffin too. If she manages to graduate, the Verhen household will be recognized as a magical bloodline. Not to mention Tista and Lith have gained a little brother and a niece. By the gods, for mages in a single generation would be terrifying. Marone put enough emphasis on his words to make his children turn pale. "My point exactly." Silpha sighed. Verhen household, a.k.a. Lith's house. A week later. Litha's life as a student was over for good. He and Floria had broken up right before leaving the academy, which left him with a small hole in his heart. Not even Tista scoring 82 out of 100 at her admission test for the academy lifted his spirits. Lith was in a terrible mood, to the point that even his family couldn't soothe his grumpiness. Chapter 331. Ever since his return home, Lith received countless invitations from noble households that wanted to get to know him or introduce their daughters to him. Most of them came from outside the county of Lustria. Luckily, it was winter, so the fireplace was usually lit. Fire was a great helper in sorting Litha's mail. I still can't believe we have a family name. Alina was radiant with joy. Her life seemed to have turned into a fairy tale ever since Litha's birth. Things were always getting better. If only Lith shared even 1/10 of her happiness, Alina would consider her life perfect. One awarded by the crown at that. I wonder if your brother will use it. He makes me worry so much. She sighed. Aaron is too little to care about a name. Lith replied. Also, he is perfectly fine. I checked on him a minute ago. I meant trying. Alina snorted. Her oldest son seemed to have disappeared years ago, yet Lith didn't care. It was another sour note in Alina's life. Don't you dare ask Huth. Solus reprimanded him in advance. If left unchecked, Lith was capable of ruining everyone's mood. Rena now used both her husband's and her own family name. Her father-in-law had insisted she and his nephew both keep the Verhen name. Zekel was proud, not stupid. Bearing a mage's name was like having an army. Like Lith, Tista had managed to enroll at White Griffin thanks to performing Silverwing's hexagram. Her core was still bright green, but thanks to Litha's teaching, her skills were top-notch. Litha's house had been constantly renovated and now looked like a merchant's home, at least from the outside. On the inside, it was almost as good as modern house on Earth. The only thing it lacked was internet. With his mastery of the magic crystals, Lith had provided the house with thermal insulation, central heating, running water, and even 2 fully equipped bathrooms. It was so comfortable that Rena and her husband had moved back to her family home for the winter. Running hot water and 2 healers was something even most nobles couldn't afford. Don't worry, little brother. I'm sure you'll find another girlfriend. Tista stamped a kiss on his cheek. Her attempt only made Lith snarl. Ever since Tista had started seriously practicing magic, her impurities had slowly but steadily moved towards her core. To make things worse, she seemed to become more gorgeous by the day. Between her awakening and her beauty, Tista will make me kill so many people that the Griffin Kingdom will miss Balkier dearly. Lith thought. He left the house, going for a stroll in the Tronwoods. As always, he passed by Celia's house first. Lith was still hoping that the huntress would return one day. Walking was one of the few things that calmed him down. Lith always hoped some magical beast would attack him, giving him the opportunity to vent out his rage. Alas, so far even the surviving kings of the woods had kept their distance. So far, Lith smelled something odd, just a split second before something hit the spot where he was standing with the strength of a freight train. Lith dodged it easily, leaving only an afterimage to greet the impact. You. Lith was surprised. He would have never expected to meet him so near his own house. We meet again, fresh meat. Philid the Croxy and crocodile-type magical beast greeted Lith with a snarl before attacking him again in a frenzy. The two had met during the Academy's second exam. Philid looked like a humanoid alligator. He stood on 2 legs reaching 2.5 meters, 8 feet 2 inches in height. He wore a belt from which several trinkets hung, while he wielded a double-headed axe and a hammer axe in his hands. Philid swung his weapons in an X shape, not giving Lith the space to dodge to the sides. Lith stepped forward instead, arriving right under the Croxy's massive torso and punched him in the stomach with enough strength to lift him from the ground. That, and the plague arrow Lith released at point blank, inflicted upon the beast enough damage to send him into the berserk rage typical of a wounded Croxy. Philid attempted to bite Lith's head off, catching only air. Lith had already moved behind his back, sending him flying with a kick and another plague arrow. The Croxy crashed against a tree, coughing a mouthful of blood. Before he could get up, Lith grabbed him by the wrist and slammed him left and right against the ground, like he was just a dirty carpet. After taking enough damage, Philid regained his senses. "Stop it, damn it. You're going to kill me. What do you want?" Lith asked while letting him go. According to Solaspedia, Croxy had a violent, twisted sense of humor. Since Lith had perceived no killing intent from the initial attacks, he was almost sure that was Philid's way of saying hi. Lith was too pissed off to care and replied in kind. "The only reason you are still alive is that you helped my companions during Balkir's attack. Bear that in mind before you answer." "Dude, you're no fun. Can't you take a joke?" Croxy were sturdy creatures. Philid was only wounded in his pride, bones, and internal organs. Death it is, then. Lith's hand held enough energy to blast him into oblivion. "Wait, I have a business offer for you. I didn't come this far just to get killed over a prank." Faced with imminent death, Philid turned very talkative. He explained to Lith how after Linjos's death, Scarlet, the Scorpicore, had decided to leave the forest. She couldn't leave before another lord was chosen, so Scarlet had helped all her lieutenants to awaken. Despite all her teachings and efforts, very few succeeded. Philid was among the failures. "Why should I care?" Lith asked. "I spoke a lot with Protector back then. He told me you have a different method. Again, this explains why you need my help, not why should I spare you. Protector also told me about your cubs, how you love your sweet ill sister." Philid almost choked when he realized his poor choice of words. All the shadows of the Tron woods converged on them, but while Lith seemed to become stronger for it, the Croxy felt his life slipping away. "I mean that by helping me, you can also help her. Help all of them. Wouldn't you like to awaken them?" At those words, Lith stopped the shadows. "Meaning, I'm damn close to awakening, just like Kala was before me. I just don't know how my life is about to end." Philid's body was still battered, but now that the dark energy had pulled back, he felt reborn. "Protector told me about your experiments. I'm offering myself as a test subject. I have nothing to lose, whereas you have everything to gain. Whatever you learn from me, you can use it for your cubs." Lith pondered that offer. Magical beasts were very similar to awakened ones, capable of using true magic from birth. He had never experimented on them because of his bond with Protector and the other kings. Also because magical beasts were proud creatures. They would rather die than submit. "I wonder how much I can discover with a subject willing to let me know what works and what doesn't," Lith thought. "I have never spectated someone else's awakening. If it happens to Tista during the academy, I can use the knowledge for damage control." "Deal," Lith said while helping Philid get up and healing his wounds. "2 rules. First, pull another prank on me and I'll kill you. Don't worry, I've learned my lesson. You mess with the Scourge, you get buried. Second, joking about my sister was a bad move. It will cost you a couple of ribs." Before the Croxy could reply, Lith's fist hit his ribcage like a sledgehammer, forcing him to emit the first of many screams of pain. Chapter 332. Lith spent his days teaching Tista and his nights teaching or experimenting on Philid. Contrary to the Croxy expectations, he was even further behind than Tista in the awakening process. "Who needs magic when you have these babies?" Philid used to say while flexing his enormous muscles. He never liked magic much, preferring to overpower his enemies with pure brute strength. Lith had to literally beat some common sense in him to force Philid to practice magic, following the same training schedule he had prepared for his sister. By the end of the winter, the Croxy's core had improved by leaps and bounds. Maybe it was because magical beasts were naturally attuned with magic. Maybe it was because of Lith's experiments on Philid to help him sense the world's energy, or maybe it was just death being an incredible motivator. Philid hadn't lied to him. Lith could see with death vision that his test subject had about a year left to live, and Lith never missed an opportunity to remind him. When the first day of spring arrived, Tista and Lith left together for White Griffin Academy. "What's the Academy's only rule?" Lith asked Tista for the umpteenth time in the last 3 months. "There are only 3 kinds of students in there. Those who will suck up on me to get into my pants, those who will do it to get into yours, and then there is me." At first Tista thought Lith was just being a killjoy, but after speaking with Freya, she wasn't so sure. "Good girl. See you in the classroom." Lith ruffled her hair before going to the headmaster's office to receive his ring and assignment for the day. He found a pleasant surprise when he walked through the door. "Freya, Quilla, nice to see you again. What are you two doing here?" Lith asked. "Lady Quilla has decided to attend 5th year again," Marth explained. "Mage Freya has offered to serve as an assistant professor, just like you." Quilla had grown quite a lot. She was now 1.6 meters, 5 feet 3 inches, high with shoulder-length brown hair. Despite Vaster's tonic and a growth spurt, she still looked incredibly frail. Her body was almost as scrawny as when they first met. Her complexion was sickly. Lith knew she had spent the last year as a recluse, rarely coming out of her room. For someone that, until a few months ago, had problems keeping her food down, returning to the academy was a huge leap. "You would have known if you had visited us even once during winter." Freya clacked her tongue. She seemed to be quite angry. "I was busy," Lith snarled back before turning to Quilla. "Are you sure, little one?" he asked while caressing her head. Lith still had problems seeing her like this. It reminded of his limits. Even when he had given his all, Lith was still unable to help her. He was just a healer, not a miracle worker. "I'm sure, thanks." At that familiar touch, Quilla finally smiled. It was a small, forced smile, but it was still better than nothing. "If anyone bothers you, just give me a call, and I'll kill them." Marth cleared his throat loudly. He could appreciate the sentiment, but not the way it was expressed. "Not literally," Lith clarified, making Marth nod in relief. "I will take away so many points from them, they'll wish they were dead." Marth went pale, while Quilla chuckled. The three left the headmaster's office and were finally able to speak freely. "I lied in there. I can really kill them, if you want." Quilla knew he wasn't joking, yet she couldn't stop laughing when she thought about Marth's face. "Don't worry about me." Freya only accepted the role of assistant to be able to act as my lady in waiting inside the academy. "What?" Lith blurted out in surprise. "Isn't it the same thing you are doing for your sister?" Freya asked. "I mean, if it was possible to bring along a relative, all those stuck-up Beastards would. Being an assistant, I can warp from floor to floor and spend time with her. My reasons are entirely different from yours." Lith shook his head. "This was my best and only real option. Until I turned 16, I have too many restrictions. Back home, I could only waste my days hunting animals or small-time criminals. I need the money, the merits, and the resources of the academy. For me and my family. Couldn't you help your parents with the farm? I'm sure they would like to spend more time in your company." Quilla asked. "I've already done that in the past, and it never ends well. My father is happy at first, but then he feels useless. His workers have nothing to do and fear losing their jobs. The same happens to Mom. It's nice having someone around that can do in a second what takes you hours, but after a few days, you find yourself having too much free time. Aaron doesn't keep them that busy. Their job is still their life." Freya and Quilla remained stunned for a second. Being magicians, there were too many things they could do in so little time. They had never thought how even a simple job could be important enough to define someone's existence. The trio separated. Lith was in charge of principles of advanced magic for the 4th year, while Freya and Quilla would be busy with magic creation on the 5th floor. Lith warped in front of the classroom. Memories of his own first day at the academy flooded his mind. He walked through the double doors to find exactly what he had expected. The classroom was noisy since Marth had yet to hand over the ballots. Small cliques had already formed. Some were just talking while others were hazing commoners and less powerful nobles. Tista was sadly between a rock and a hard place. From what Lith could hear with his enhanced hearing, a group of girls was trying to shame her, while a group of boys was offering her protection in exchange for entertainment. What a show-off little BTCHUR. The leader of the pack was a blonde girl, flat as a board and much shorter than Tista. What she lacked in physique, she made up in attitude. "Why don't you wear your robe? You're a disgrace to all the students of the White Griffin. The uniform is supposed to make us feel empowered, not look like WH Res," she said while pointing at Tista's generous chest. The other girls either laughed or joined her, piling cruel words on their victim. The boys were enjoying the show, discussing Tista's body like she wasn't even there. I wonder how many professors already got a taste of that pretty body and face of yours to stoop so low as to admit an old hag like you. With her 16 years, Tista was indeed old for the 4th year. She had been accepted because of her talent, and because between Balkier and Nalier the White Griffin had already lost too many mages. Tista attempted to reply, outraged by those words, but the blonde girl slapped her hard as soon as Tista attempted to stand up. Chapter 333. If I say sit, you sit. You are ABTCH, so act like one. Otherwise, I'll be forced to teach you how to play dead. Thunderous laughter followed. Most of the class was truly enjoying the moment. Tista was on the verge of tears, but instead of falling apart, she stood up again. Then, she slapped her tormentor hard enough to make the blonde girl spin 180 degrees before falling on a desk. How dare you? The blonde girl was about to retaliate when something stopped her. Her body froze like time had stopped. All according to plan. Lith inwardly grinned. He had given Tista a ballot beforehand and told her to not introduce herself with her family name, but as a simple commoner instead. He wanted her to experience the true academy, without the shield his presence would grant her. Tista needs to grow up. I can't protect her forever. That slap was a really good one. I'm proud of her, he thought. Good morning, my dear students, he said with his best Nalier impression. I'm Assistant Professor Lith Verhen, and I'll teach you principles of advanced magic. At his appearance, all the girls ran back to their desks, each trying to emphasize her own charms and draw his attention. From what they knew, Lith was the same age as them and, more importantly, single. Many of them had planned in advance how to approach him to reap the most benefits both during and after the academy. The boys could only hate Lith's guts. Compared to him, they seemed like scrawny dwarves. Before starting the class, I'd like to share with you some bad news and some even worse news, he said with an angelic smile while memorizing every face in the class. The bad news is that this girl's full name is actually Tista Verhen. She is my sister. Lith's smile disappeared and his eyes flared with mana. A single wave of his hand was enough to use gravity magic on every student but Tista. It made their heads slam against the hardwood desks with enough strength to make them bleed. The even worse news is that she had a ballot all along. I'm sure Headmaster Marth will have many things to discuss with both you and your parents. The lights in the classroom flickered. Lith's killing intent brought nightmares to life for each student every time the lights went off. Some could have sworn they saw their own shadow stare back at them with glowing eyes and a smile entirely made of fangs. For those of you who will not be expelled, I can promise you this. We have a long, long year ahead of us. It will be full of blood, tears, and sweat. I'll make sure of it. In the meantime, minus 200 points to everyone but Tista. Even from their prone position, some managed to object at the insane punishment. I didn't do anything. Why I'm getting punished too? Some asked. You just answered your own question. You did nothing, hence you deserve nothing. Minus 100 more points to everyone for questioning my judgment. Lith cruelly smiled. He sent the ballot to the headmaster before starting the actual lesson. One by one, those responsible for the hazing incident were summoned to Marth's office. Many never returned. Months passed, and it was finally time for the mock exam. Lith and Freya were watching the events unfold from the surveillance mirrors, ready to save the students in case something went wrong. How is Tista doing? Freya asked. It was frustrating how, despite living so close, it was so hard for her to get in touch with Lith. He was always busy with either his magical research, helping Tista study, or chasing Manohar to force him doing his job. Being the new bee, he had been entrusted with the worst job possible in the light magic department. Being Manohar's assistant, warden, or nanny according to the circumstances. So far, so good, he replied while his eyes moved from one mirror to another. Her grades are good and she has no friends. All according to plan. Plan? That's sick. How can you do that to your own sister? Freya was outraged. I did nothing. Her classmates simply acted as I predicted, and Tista makes her own decisions. Lith explained. Or did you expect her to forgive and forget just because of some lame AS apologies? Actually, no. Freya suddenly felt stupid. She had watched the recording from Tista's ballot. Every time she was teaching to the fourth-year students, Freya treated them like the trash she believed they were. Me neither, Lith replied. That's why I made sure her group was picked at random and placed in one of the worst spots of the forest, just like what happened to me. It's only under situations of real stress that people reevaluate themselves and show their true colors. It's how Floria found me. I hope Tista gets lucky as I did. Freya could still hear a tinge of nostalgia in his voice when he said her name. House Erna's, during the academy break after the first exam. The family was reunited to celebrate Quilla's success. Despite having spent so long without practicing light magic, a few failures and a lot of effort was all it took for her to regain the ground she had lost. During the 5th year, the nature of the first exam depended on the student specialization. In Quilla's case, she had to deal with the simulation of the outbreak of an unknown disease. The simulation involved the use of lab rats instead of humans. Each one was at a different stage of the infection, and their death also meant the failure of the exam. After everything she had gone through, the death of a few rats would leave her unfazed. While the others went into panic, she took control of the situation, becoming the leader of her team. She assigned a role to each member based on their strong points. The less talented healers were tasked with keeping the zone quarantined, preventing the infection from spreading to the healthy specimens. Those with mediocre talent were to use their abilities to slow the progression of the disease, while Quilla and the others studied the pathogen in search of a cure. Her team achieved the best score, and Quilla had received many compliments for her presence of mind. Aside from Floria, the whole family was reunited for the event, even Gunnian and Tullian, Floria's blood brothers. It was the first time in years that Orion had managed to bring his sons back home. Not only had Quilla aced her exam, but she was also slowly regaining her health. She had friends again, and even a boy she liked. Despite all that, Orion Ernest was so down that he spent most of the evening staring out the window. "What's wrong with you, dear?" Journey was seriously worried about him. When Quilla had told him about the boy, Orion didn't grunt or object. He didn't even order a priority 1 background check on the little pest. "I just miss my little flower," he sighed. Chapter 334. I always wanted her to be strong and independent, but now that she's gone, I don't give a damn about all that CRP. Why didn't Lith stop her? He was still a bit young, but he could still marry if his parents gave their approval. That's rich coming from you. Journey scoffed. Maybe if instead of messing with my plans you had helped me, things would be different. Or maybe Lith knew her well enough to understand he couldn't stop her. Nothing is lost yet. She is in the army, and he will join the army in the future. Now, enough sulking. Quilla needs us more than ever. Lith's house, same moment. After over 6 months, Lith and Philid had reached a critical moment in their endeavor. The impurities in the Croxy's body were so close to his bright cyan core that they could almost touch. "Okay, I've done all that I can," Lith said. "I brought you over a mana geyser for your training. I have used invigoration to help you feel the world energy and push the impurities closer to your core whenever it wasn't painful for you. The last step, it's on you. Don't worry, I can feel resistance, but no discomfort." Philid replied. Even after all that time, he still had to learn invigoration. The Croxy's mana perception was even worse than Litha's when he had just started the academy. It was only thanks to Litha's training schedule and his natural attunement to magic that Philid was able to crudely stimulate his own core. "I swear, this thing feels like I'm taking the biggest SHT of my life." Philid couldn't stop laughing from excitement. He was filled to the brim with an unknown energy that made him euphoric. Suddenly, the night sky cleared. Philid's body emitted a blinding radiance, but unlike normal light, it didn't spread in all directions, only upwards. Even using darkness magic in his hands as a shield, Lith could barely stand the intensity the light pillar emitted. It slowly grew in height and width, until a second light pillar descended from the sky. It connected itself with the smaller one coming out from Philid. The phenomenon gave Lith an oddly familiar sensation. This feeling, it's too similar to what I experienced during my transformations to be a coincidence. What the FCK is happening? He thought. Beats me, Solus replied. The only thing I know is that Philid's core is evolving. The Croxy's body started to expand in all directions until his arms became as big as small trees. After that, it only grew in length. When everything was over, Lith was staring at a 10 meters, 33 foot, long serpentine body covered by emerald scales as big as a small shield. The head resembled that of a dragon from Earth's fairy tales, with several small horns surrounding the neck area like a mane. Philid's legs had been replaced by a long tail, while his clawed arms seemed able to rip even a stone house to shreds. Yes, I knew it. I always knew I was destined to become. The light faded, and so did the evolved monster's awareness. What am I? He asked Lith while scratching his gigantic head. Lith accessed the bestiaries he had copied from the Academy and stored inside Solaspedia before answering. You are a lindworm, he said while clicking his tongue. All this work, and you're not even a new species. Protector at last isn't derivative. I'm not derivative, Philid roared. He had no idea what the word meant, but he was sure it had to be some kind of insult. He stuttered a few times. What am I again? A lindworm, Lith snarled. A lesser dragon, like a wyvern but wingless and with a very long AS. According to my books, you should possess some kind of toxic breath. Really? Cool. Philid took a deep breath from the nose, emitting a gurgling sound before spitting an enormous mass of phlegm against the nearest tree. Why, it's not melting. The lindworm looked at the birch tree like it had betrayed him. I said toxic breath, not sputum. Lith replied, how do I do that? How should I know? You're the lindworm. You'll figure it out. Lith shrugged. Ugh, it sounds like a lot of work. Let's spar already. Philid towered over Lith, standing 5 meters tall, while his tail whipped the air in excitement. It would be a waste of time. You have just evolved. You have no control over your body, not to mention you suck at magic. Maybe you're physically stronger than me now, but I've killed bigger and more powerful beings than you. We'll see. Philid darted towards Lith like a train. His new body was much nimbler and faster than the old one. He clapped his huge hands, trying to squash the opponent, but once again he only hit the air. Lith had long learned true dimensional magic, which allowed him to blink above Philid's head. Bad lindworm. Seat. Lith stamped his left foot using a combination of air, fire, and earth fusion while using air magic to drop down like a meteor. The foot exerted the same impact an elevator in free fall from the 6th floor would. The dragon-like head crashed on the ground with a rumbling sound, creating a small crater on impact. I yield. Philid hated Lith, especially when he was right. The problem was it happened most of the time. Neither of them had used his true strength, but the quick exchange had been more than enough to prove the difference in skill between the two. How did you? Magic. Until now, you could only use water and earth. I already taught you everything you need to know about first magic and all the other elements. Practice on your own. Our deal is over, Lith said while walking toward his home. Wait, I need new axes and something to carry them. Why is that my problem? Lith replied, you have nothing I want, and I don't work for free. Lith said, don't even think about plundering this area. There's nothing valuable, and if someone pays me, I'll be more than happy to get rid of you. Dude, that's cruel. I never needed money. I don't even know how to get back home. Boss Scarlet warped me here with one of those fancy portals. Can't you do the same? If earlier going unnoticed was hard, now it's impossible. Philid whined. Again, not my problem. Lith was tired of dealing with the lindworm. He always managed to give him a headache. Scourge, was that your doing? Even though they hadn't met in years, Lith immediately recognized that voice. Of course it was me. Nice to finally see you again, Reaper. I was starting to think you were avoiding me. Reaper the SHYF, one of the 2 remaining kings of the woods, didn't reply immediately. Actually, I was. Since Protector's disappearance, there's something wrong about you. It scares us greatly. What changed your mind? Lith asked. We are desperate for help. Reaper admitted. You never took interest in your role of king, leaving your turn in our hands. Now that Protector is gone, we lack the strength to defend our land from humans and monsters both. Those who replace the 2 of you are too weak. Can you help us evolve too? Otherwise, it's only a matter of time before something bad happens. Chapter 335. How can two weaklings have become kings? Lith was confused. Protector had always been the strongest among the four, but not by much. We are not like humans. A king is simply the most powerful beast in the area. The new kings are simply too young. Those of my generations have all died, either of old age or by challenging my authority. Reaper explained. Replacing a single king is not an easy feat too, is impossible. Solus, Lith asked. I'm not sure we can help them. Reaper is not as strong as Philid was when he got here. There's still too many things we don't understand. I am Reaper. I could do it, but it would take time and a considerable amount of risk. I spent over 6 months to awaken him through painstaking efforts. Mostly mine. Philid snarled, especially the pain part. If you want to walk in the park, you are free to go anytime. Lith replied, without my teachings and experiments, you would still be waiting for death. Bottom line, Reaper, what you're asking from me is impossible. I don't have the time to teach you in Lifebringer, let alone focus on even weaker beasts. Even if I did, there are no guarantees of success. You could die or worse. You could turn into an abomination, and I'd be forced to put you down. Unless... Lith looked at Philid with renewed interest. Seems you guys are lucky. He needs a place to live until he learns dimensional magic. Lith pointed at the lined worm. While the kings need someone capable to give them a hand and teach them the basics. You are a match made in heaven. You are asking quite a lot from me and offering nothing in return. Philid snorted. I can survive on my own. Why should I waste my time with him? Do you still want any new axes? Lith asked with a wolfish smile. Time to make a new deal. I'll give you what you want in exchange for your help. Make them enchanted, then. The lined worm raised the stakes. Teaching was like thinking, something he hated doing. Deal. Lith instantly replied, catching both the creatures by surprise. What a sucker. Philid inwardly gloated. He didn't even try to bargain. We have gravely misjudged him. Reaper was deeply moved by Lith's altruism. He truly deserves the trust and the title of Crownless King Protector gave him. Lith had always refused to rule over the west area of the Tron Woods. He would help the kings to deal with threats like abominations or crazed beasts, only to disappear whenever a crisis was resolved. Hence Protector's moniker. What a moron! Lith inwardly grinned while shaking the lined worm's hand and sealing the deal. He asked for enchanted weapons, not for good ones. He is in for a nasty surprise. As for you guys, I need something in return. Lith turned toward Reaper. Name it, and it will be done. I swear it on my pack. Reaper's reply stunned Lith for a second. According to Protector, it was the most sacred oath a magical beast could take. Soon I'll go away. My cubs will be left unprotected, and I don't trust humans. I want from those of you who will survive the treatment to guard my pack, no matter how long will it take. Protect all those who carry my blood. If they truly carried your blood, they wouldn't need any protection. Reaper grinned, crouching on his front paws, giving Lith a small bow. I'll make sure everyone understands it's a gamble. I'll introduce to you only those who are willing to take my same oath. When are you going to leave? Soon. Lith replied. Tron Woods, after Lith is left for the academy. Reaper and Philid were visiting one tribe after the other, searching for volunteers. Power and longevity were a powerful siren, especially for those aware of their lifespan coming to an end. They were among the smartest beasts of the woods, but also those Reaper trusted very little. Wisdom and mastery of magic weren't the only thing a magical beast could develop over time. Despite their affinity with Mogre, they could become greedy for life. They would despise the humans, so weak and magically inept, yet blessed with a long life. I don't get it, Philid said. How can a weakling like you be the king of anything? Boss Scarlet can pummel you with just a swing of her tail. Heck, maybe even I can. How many times do I have to tell you? Reaper sighed. The woods have a density of magical energy much lower than your forest. It has no will of its own. Kings have no special relationship with the woods, nor share part of its power. Our duty is to protect the balance of the woods, hoping that one day it will awaken. Wow, sounds really boring. No wonder Protector left this place. Maybe if we manage to awaken a lot of you guys, things may even become interesting. Philid scoffed. Are you even listening to yourself? Your idea is simply terrible. Either a lot of us will die, further weakening the woods, or if too many awaken, at once it could result in a war for the territory. We can't pick candidates at random, but only those strong enough to survive the process and trustworthy enough to be entrusted with such power. The more time they spent together, the more Reaper felt ashamed at the idea that a blockhead like Philid had managed to awaken while he and Lifebringer were still stuck as magical beasts. Whatever. I know that your house, your rules, but I think you're being very rude. What are you talking about? Reaper was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. I've always been polite to you, even when you didn't deserve it. Whoa. First, chill. Second, I wasn't talking about me. It's just that I can't understand why, after wasting our time with all those small fries, you are purposely ignoring a big tribe of trolls. Philid pointed one of his huge fingers towards the north. They are very strong. Boss Scarlet usually has to wipe them out fast before they swarm the forest. I'm really impressed by your ability to tame such fierce creatures. What trolls? If it wasn't for his brown fur, Reaper would have turned pale. Chapter 336. Do you mean they aren't your friends? That sure would explain a lot. Philid said, while moving away from the menace as fast as he could. Of course they are no friends of mine. There have never been trolls in the Tron Woods. More importantly, what the heck are trolls? Reaper asked. Philid pondered for a second, trying to remember Scarlet's words correctly. Trolls are one of the fallen races. They were once humanoid creatures of great wisdom and longevity. Like us magical beasts, they were in tune with two elements, but they were the same for everyone, light and darkness. At the same time, like humans, they could freely learn all kinds of magic. Their major weak point was their low reproductive ability, for balance and stuff. They were superior to us, but too few in numbers to expand their dominion. At some point, they decided to solve their problem with magic. They used light magic to force their evolution, becoming able to spawn faster and also increasing their physical abilities. At first, it was a great success. By altering their life force with light magic, they became the perfect race. At least until the unforeseen side effects started to appear. In a couple of generations, their children were raving mad from birth and plagued with an insatiable hunger. Their millennia-old society was destroyed in a matter of weeks. Wait a minute. How could children destroy a civilization in weeks? Why their parents didn't kill them? The idea that the same thing could happen to the Tron Woods terrified Reaper. Are you deaf or what? Philid scoffed. I told you they spawn fast. The little bee stards can reach maturity in a few hours with enough nourishment. They are damn strong and hard to kill. Light magic runs rampant in their bodies. They recover from any wound in a matter of seconds. Cut off an arm, and in a few minutes, you get double trouble. The troll regrows the limb, while the limb regrows the troll. To make things even worse, their whole body is a frigging mouth. Attacking them without a weapon means literally throwing yourself in their maw. I almost got killed by them twice. That's why I want my frigging axes. Reaper stopped in his tracks, putting together everything Philid told him. How long do we have before they swarm the woods? A week, maybe 2 if we are lucky. Philid pondered. Depends on how much food they find and how hard they have to fight for it. The beastards can eat anything. Meat, fruits, grass, even trees if they are really hungry. Right now, they are barely a dozen, but tomorrow they could be 24 and 48 the day after that. By the Great Mother, then we need to act now? What are their weak points? Reaper had a bad feeling. If even after turning into an evolved monster Philid was eager to run away from them, he had to have a really good reason. Not many. Perfect race, remember? They are incredibly stupid, but with their abilities, they can afford it. Magic is mostly useless against them. Only fire and light can kill them for good. They burn like dry grass, but Boss Scarlet always used light magic to get rid of them. Reaper was flabbergasted. He never heard about light magic being able to kill, making it impossible for him to understand Scarlet's tactic. It was actually pretty simple, but Reaper's panic was blinding him. Fire was dangerous to use inside the woods because, until the end of the combat, it would be free to spread everywhere. Also, the explosions usually associated with it could blast away a piece of troll, bringing it to safety. If it happened, it was only a matter of time before that single missing piece spawned a new tribe. It was exactly what had brought trolls in the woods. A team of adventurers had been tasked to get rid of a small tribe and did a poor job cleaning up their remains. You can use all elements now, right? It should be easy for you wiping them out. Dude, I've awakened from daze, and magic has never been my thing. I can use water and earth, but they can barely stall for time. If you don't have a way of dealing with them, we're as good as dead. It's better to run to fight another day. Philid's words almost crushed Reaper's hopes. The lindworm was right. During his last days in the woods, Lith had only explained them invigoration and how to practice first magic. He had refused to teach Philid any spell to force the lindworm to understand the importance of magical research. Run away? If what you said is true, then in a week those creatures will turn the woods in a barren land. At that point, they'll attack Lucia. I'm sure that Lith will appreciate you breaking your oath and letting his family getting killed. Reaper retorted, making Philid freeze in fear. We need to kill them now. I'll get all the help I can find. You keep an eye on them and prevent them from spreading. I have a plan. The lindworm spent the following hour watching the horror the trolls were from a safe distance. He also weaved as many spells as he could, just to be safe. For the first time in his life, Philid regretted not listening to Scarlet the Scorpicore when she tried to teach him more advanced magic. Thank the Great Mother I've no legs anymore. My new body allows me to be silent, without stomping or tripping like my old one. Philid's size wasn't an issue. The troll's eyes were white, without pupils or irises. In his experience, they were blind and relied on their hearing and sense of smell to track their prey. Philid wasn't soft-hearted by nature. He often enjoyed playing with his meals before killing them, yet he couldn't help but pity the troll's miserable existence. They were over 2 meters, 6 feet 7 inches, tall, and their skin was of a sickly white color. They had no eyelids nor nose, breathing from 2 holes right in the middle of their faces. They had no lips either, revealing their huge maw filled with fangs going from ear to ear. They were skeletal with a swollen belly, as if they hadn't eaten from days. Their hands had long fingers ending in razor-sharp claws, and their bodies were covered by odd-looking scars that gave Philid the creeps. The trolls had already eaten everything in a 100 meters, 328 feet, radius, so they were lazily grazing the grass while waiting for the next prey to draw their attention. When Reaper returned with the reinforcements, Philid could finally sigh in relief. There were BYKS, bear-type magical beasts, SHYFS, puma-type, Gylads, stag-type, Ris, wolf-type, and Krons, hawk-type. Each tribe had sent their 4 most powerful members. Every one of them was a king or a potential king candidate. The BYKS were eager to fight and prove their worth. After Lith had defeated Urtu, their previous leader, and the most talented member of their tribe had turned into an abomination, the Krons Alpha had become the king in the West, usurping their title. Chapter 337. That's it, Philid whispered despite his frustration. He couldn't risk alerting the trolls. What are we going to do with just 20 stooges? 21. Reaper said, pointing at the lindworm. I brought only champions. Weaklings would only be dead weight or food for the trolls. Besides, why so gloomy? We almost outnumber them, 2 to 1. Dream on. Philid sighed. There are 16 now. Trolls reproduced asexually. Whenever one of them was full enough, it would give birth to a new creature. Damn it, Reaper cursed. We have to move fast. Here's my plan. Everyone nodded in agreement, except the BYKS. We don't trust birds. They'll fly away like the cowards they are, said Cormer, their leader. Shut up, Cormer. Reaper commanded him. I know you can't stand Krons. I only asked for your help because BYKS are the only ones beside the Riss that can use fire magic. One more thing before I forget. Whatever happens, do not use darkness magic. Philid chimed in, enraging both BYKS and Krons. Why is that? It's the most destructive element. They said in unison, leaving Reaper flabbergasted. It was the first time they had agreed on anything. I don't remember. Philid shrugged. Centaur told me so. She's a Kron too, so she can use air and darkness magic. I trust her, and so does Boss Scarlet. She's the next in line to become Lord of the Forest. Despite being an evolved monster, Philid lacked the imposing aura of a king, so both tribes refused to listen to his advice. Only Lifebringer and Reaper managed to stop their bickering. He may not seem very bright, but he fought them twice and lived to tell the tale. Said Lifebringer, the king in the south, "I'd have liked to meet you in more happy circumstances, Philid. These two are Guardian and Thunder, the two new kings." He pointed at the biggest among the Riss and the Krons, respectively. "Everyone, get into position. If we fail, the woods will belong either to the trolls or the humans. We have to pick the lesser evil and cooperate." The idea of losing their ancestral home was enough for all the clans to agree to a truce. Reaper's plan was simple. A few gutted rabbits were enough to lure the trolls to a large clearing. The smell of blood was for them like a flame to a moth. They moved so fast that the magical beasts only saw a blur until the trolls stopped to consume their meal. At that point, the Gylads, SHWFS, and Philid used earth magic to turn the clearing into a crater 10 meters, 33 feet, deep, while the Riss and the BYKS unleashed fire on the trolls. The mad creatures ignored everything around them. They kept fighting among themselves until the last shred of flesh and bones was consumed. Only the 4 newborns died. The adults were too strong. Most of their injuries healed so fast that even the magical flames couldn't keep up. Only then did the trolls notice the magical beasts and rush towards their new prey. The Krons attempted to hit them with lightning, while the earth magic users turned the ground into quicksand and erected stone walls to protect their allies. The trolls were too fast for the quicksand to be effective. They even managed to dodge most lightning bolts. The trolls reached the stone walls, tearing through them like they were made of paper. One of the BYKS was caught off guard. The troll's arm had pierced the wall and grabbed her by the neck. She didn't have the time to call for help. Her throat had already been replaced by a gaping hole. The maw on the troll's palm opened and closed repeatedly, eating its way to the spine. The other magical beasts didn't understand what was happening until the troll smashed through the wall, embracing the BYK. The odd-looking scars turned out to be more maws, consuming the poor creature in the blink of an eye. Cursing their bad luck, Guardian used a blast of air magic to send the troll back to the center of the crater, exploiting its feeding frenzy. Then, she unleashed a pillar of fire that filled the whole crater and engulfed all the trolls, buying her allies the time they needed to adjust their formation. "Damn it, I don't think we can make it. We have to call Lith before it's too late." Reaper knew that only by swallowing his pride as a king did they have a chance of success. "Philid, what are you waiting for?" Philid sighed. Reaper had clearly gone mad, yet he obeyed nonetheless. "Lith, we need help." He screamed at the top of his lungs, almost deafening his own allies. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, at White Griffin Academy. "I wonder why my ears are burning," Lith thought while explaining advanced body sculpting to Quilla's class. "Are you insane?" Reaper was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. "Again? What was that for? How the heck I'm supposed to call Lith? With our friendship power?" Philid snarled, sending the trolls back in the crater with well-timed swings of his tail. Despite being strengthened by earth fusion, the lindworm's body was covered with bite marks. Small chunks of meat were missing. Reaper realized that Philid had no communication amulet. It was likely that he didn't even know they existed. The only option left was fighting to the bitter end. Even with their combined efforts and the higher ground, were the magical beasts barely able to keep up. It was only thanks to their perseverance and the trolls' lack of spells that they slowly managed to turn the tides. The fire kept burning the trolls like candles, forcing the light magic coursing through their bodies to deplete their nutrients to keep them alive. One by one, the monsters ran out of juice and died of starvation until only those who had eaten one or more magical beasts were still alive. Only 4 trolls remained against 15 magical beasts. The Krons were the only tribe with no casualties since they never touched the ground. "Cursed birds, come down instead of flying like cowards." Cormer, the BYK Alpha, got distracted in his outrage. The troll that had already tasted BYK's meat didn't miss the opportunity, grabbing him by the throat. Cormer went into a panic, unleashing darkness magic against the monster to get rid of it. Contrary to his expectations, the creature emitted a moan of pleasure. The troll's body was now bulging with muscles, its eyes white no more. Cormer could perceive the mouth closing on his throat, yet it didn't bite. Fear made him ignore the sudden burst of intelligence from the previously mindless creature. The BYK sent more and more darkness magic into his captor's body. "You idiot!" Philid reacted as quick as he could, piercing both the BYK and the troll with countless ice spears. Now, I remember, trolls are also known as the unliving. It's the lack of darkness energy in their bodies that makes them a fallen race. That stupid BYK gave the troll enough darkness to regain its senses. Philid thought. The troll roared in outrage. With Cormer's death, it could already feel its mind slipping away again. The troll ate the BYK's corpse with its hand, before freeing himself from the ice spears by flexing his muscles. The hideous troll was quickly regaining its humanoid features, taking the appearance of a man with gray skin and 4 arms. The creature now had gold-colored eyes that glowed with mana, reminding Philid of Litha's life vision. The troll charged at the lindworm, releasing small bolts of light when they were almost at close quarters. Unlike darkness magic, light magic was fast, but its range was even worse. Philid managed to dodge most of the bolts, but some struck him, making his body go limp. That's a watered-down version of Boss Scarlet's offensive light spell, Philid thought while watching the troll's maws ripping through his flesh. Chapter 338. Philid had no memory of ever being an animal. His first recollection was standing up on his legs, feeling the need to fill his belly. As a magical beast, he had always been on the top of the food chain. Fear was a rare emotion for him, something he experienced only when facing evolved monsters or, more recently, Lith. Being eaten alive made Philid discover the emotion of terror, the awareness that, even if he somehow managed to get rid of the troll, he could still die from his wounds, was almost enough to make him panic. Almost. His body was weak, but his mind was strong. Tendrils of earth emerged from the ground, shoving themselves down the troll's many maws. Mud and rocks tasted terrible. A disgusted expression appeared on the fallen's face while it tried to get rid of the fetters restricting its movements. Reaper exploited the moment the two were finally separated to unleash his most powerful lightning on the still struggling troll. Hammerfall was the equivalent of a Tier 4 air spell. The lightning bolt was as big as a small house, and instead of striking once before disappearing into the ground, it coiled around its prey, hitting it multiple times. The troll's skin was blackened, and the smell of grilled meat accompanied his charred body. It made the lindworm hungry, reminding him he was an apex predator. All those who opposed him were bound to become food first and manure later. The troll started to heal the instant the lightning stopped, its hands glowing with light magic. Guardian the Ree struck it with several fire bolts, but in its humanoid form, the troll wasn't vulnerable to fire anymore. "I'm useless here," she said. "I'll go back and help the others. Try to hold on until we get rid of the other 3 trolls." Easier said than done. Reaper cursed. Letting a single troll go would mean that all of their fallen companions would have died for nothing. Running away wasn't an option. Philid roared his challenge and stood up on his tail despite the agony from his multiple wounds and the blood spurting everywhere. The troll charged at the lindworm, releasing another barrage of daggers made of light. This time Philid was ready. He clenched his right hand, raising a stone wall that blocked the light spell. The troll smashed through the wall, falling into Philid's trap. Right behind the stone barrier, he had mixed water and earth to create a thick mud layer that thoroughly coated the troll. Suddenly the creature was deaf, blind, and slowed enough for the lindworm to conjure a giant hammer made of stone. He used it to send the troll flying in the sky with a single powerful upward blow. "Strike it with everything you got." Philid ordered both the Krons and Reaper while removing the earth and leaving the monster drenched in water. Lightning bolts struck from every direction with enough force to almost prevent the troll from falling down. Philid made sure the creature never regained its footing. He swung the stone hammer, sending the troll flying every time it was about to reach the ground. With no spells and its mobility sealed, soon the troll reverted back to its hideous form and died shortly thereafter. Philid was exhausted. He was doing everything he could to treat his wounds, but his knowledge of light magic was limited to chore magic. He could only dress the wounds with earth magic to stop the bleeding. When he saw that the 3 other trolls were still alive, rage blinded him. "Why don't you just die?" he roared. The air in his lungs mixed with the unique mana running through his body. A spark of his life force ignited the mana, turning the roar into a green cloud that enveloped the trolls and filled the crater. The rocks melted, and the earth decaying, emitting the disgusting smell of rotten eggs. Everything touched by the toxic breath died, and the trolls were no exception. Their bodies turned into pools of white liquid. Not even bones were left behind. "FCK my life." Philid cursed. "Couldn't I have learned that 5 minutes ago?" Of the 21 magical beasts, only 14 remained, and many others wouldn't survive their wounds. Floria's boot camp was a nightmare. She knew what to expect. Orion had told her everything in advance. Yet no words could describe the harsh reality she had faced during the last 6 months. First, her long hair had been shaved to a buzz cut, and then all of her magical items had been confiscated. Everything that reminded her of her past life, every link with her family had been severed. They strictly forbid the use of magic outside of chore magic during the training course. The cadets could only use their first name and the service number assigned to them. It was for their own protection. The military was the polar opposite of an academy. The male-to-female ratio was 7-3, and nobles would suffer from hazing if discovered. Most of the applicants were poor people trying to build a better future for themselves. More often than not, they had been forced to run away from an unfair ruler, either to spare their families from more taxes or to avoid a grudge. Nobles were despised by both officers and grunts, forcing them to hide in plain sight. With her muscular build and her callous hands from all her training, Floria had no problems passing for a commoner. Whenever someone asked her about her family or past, she simply talked about Lithus. They had spent so much time together that she knew his life like the back of her hand. It helped Floria to make friends and to keep her identity a secret. She had never experienced most of their daily worries except through Lith's words. The first months were brutal. The instructors only cared about strength, stamina, and speed. Only those who excelled would get a shot at becoming part of the elite forces. Average cadets could only become normal soldiers, while those lacking in one or more skill could only hope that their brain would get them a desk job. The rest would be deemed unfit for service and discharged. In every test during the first 3 months, Floria outperformed every other cadet in her platoon. It earned her a lot of admiration from her Barak mates, and just as much hostility from the other cadets. However, the Ernest family had stolen too much spotlight lately. Their enemies were itching for an opportunity to embarrass them. Archduke Tebin had never forgotten the humiliation his daughter suffered during the White Griffin tournament. He couldn't stand Floria overshadowing Clea in the military too, so he made sure the right rumors reached the right ears. When her identity was casually discovered, all Floria's hard work was for naught. Even her Barak mates abandoned her. They could stand being outclassed by a hard-working commoner, while the success of a silver spoon noble was unacceptable. Soon Floria was cut off from the other cadets. The only thing worse than the daily hazing and humiliation was the isolation. Things hit rock bottom when her platoon met their sergeant instructor, Tryon Proudstar. It was Archduke Tebin's final gift. He knew Tryon hated his brother so much that he had refused Lith's family name and bought one with his own merits instead of using them to further his career. Chapter 339. Tryon was powerless to do anything to Lith. No commanding officer in his right mind would put 2 brothers in the same platoon. Floria, though, was a whole different story. Tryon did his worst to ruin her military file. He charged her with insubordination whenever she objected to the impossible tasks he assigned to her, and gave her demerits when she inevitably failed to accomplish them. Floria wasn't a stunner, but everything about her drove Tryon crazy with envy. She was now 1.78 meters, 5 feet 10 inches tall, while he barely reached the average height of 1.65 meters, 5 feet 5 inches. The idea that a noble dame belonging to one of the most important households in the kingdom, who also was a very powerful mage, had been his brother's girlfriend was something he couldn't stand. According to the rumors, this W.H. Ree slept with him for over a year. I heard they got this close to becoming engaged. Yet none of the noble beachees I met did so much as to look at me because of my origins. Tryon thought. He knew that messing with an Ernest was a bad idea, yet he did it nonetheless. Tryon knew it was likely to be his only opportunity to get back at his brother, so he couldn't miss it. Tebben was aware of Tryon's grudge. It was the reason he had chosen him for the job. Only an idiot would put everything on the line for a petty reason, and Tryon was exactly that kind of man. Floria endured the constant latrine duty, the insults, and the protection he offered to anyone who hazed her. The only silver lining in that situation was that the Erna's name was both a blessing and a curse. It gave everyone a reason to hate her, but at the same time, it set boundaries not even the most reckless soldier dared to cross. Journey's reputation was only second to Orion's when it came to avenging his daughters for any kind of offense, be it real or simply perceived as such. Even with Tebben's protection, Tryon had to walk a thin line to avoid turning from perpetrator to victim. Months passed. That morning, Floria found her mail in the mud, as it always was after a rainy night. Normally, it would take her first magic and quite an effort to salvage its contents. But this time the letter was written with special ink, which made it easy to read. She grinned and had the courtesy to slam the barracks door behind her and waking everyone up. A lot of swear words filled the morning silence, but she didn't care. For once she deserved them. Floria walked double time toward the officers' quarters, humming the whole time. "What are you doing here, Private Ernest?" Tryon's voice was full of contempt, putting emphasis on her rank being at the bottom of the barrel. "I'm going to receive my new assignment, Sergeant Proudstar, sir." She gave him the salute. Her voice was unusually happy. "You have no assignment until I say so," he yelled. Tryon might have been a simple sergeant instructor, but to a private in boot camp, he was a king. "Haven't you learned that I hate sass? Drop down and give me 20. "I'm not in the mood, thanks." "Do it yourself. I have better things to do." Tryon turned bright red in outrage. Never before had someone dared to defy his orders. "This is the army, not your precious household. Little missy, your insubordination will cost you dearly." Floria's reply was but a simple word. "Kneel." Suddenly Tryon felt his body weight increase until he wasn't able to stand up anymore. His hands hit the muddy ground with a thud, requiring all of his strength to not end up face first in the dirt. "That does it. Using magic on your commanding officer will get you court-martialed. Not even your family can save you this time," he said with a grunt while his face inched closer and closer to the ground. "I don't think so. I'm just using magic on a measly sergeant to punish his bad manners, which border on insubordination." Floria placed the letter where he could read its contents. She had just been promoted to second lieutenant. The only reason why Floria endured Tryon for the past 3 months was that she knew that there was little he could do if she didn't fall for his provocations. The only results that mattered were those assigned to the whole platoon. If Tryon set them too high to make her fail, everyone would fail. Whenever he underrated her performances, all she had to do was to ask for a second evaluation. "For your information, Sergeant, gravity magic is another thing I learned from your brother. After meeting you, I'm not surprised your family has completely forgotten about you." Her voice was stone cold. She pressed down on his head with her boot until Tryon's nose dipped into the mud. "I don't believe you." Despite the anger behind his words, his voice lacked conviction. "Do you know that you have another little brother? That Rena now has a daughter? Except for Alina, no one cares if you're dead or alive. Both babies have been named after Lith, you know? Instead of running away as you did, he made their life better." Floria used the truth to hide her lies, making them as painful as possible. "You're nothing but a little man, inside and out. I could ruin your career with a call, but you're not worthy of my time. 2 years, and you are still a sergeant? Pathetic." Her words and her boot crushed his resistance. making Tryon fall flat into the mud. Floria left him sobbing. She wanted to wear her new uniform and settle all the scores she had left before leaving the camp. White Griffin Academy. After the end of lessons, all Lith had left to do was to make sure Manohar was properly entertained. Ever since Marth became headmaster, the eccentric genius had stopped going missing. Marth made sure he would receive new components and ingredients from time to time instead of getting them all at once. This way Manohar would explore the possibilities that each branch of his research offered before moving on to the next project. Lith's duty was to check if Manohar's boredom levels were reaching the danger zone. In such cases, Lith was allowed to provide him with new toys that would keep him busy in his lab. Judging from the Do Not Disturb sign hung to Manohar's door and the amount of neglected paperwork on his desk, Lith could sigh in relief. It's when he starts doing his job without being forced to that I have to worry, Lith reminded himself. Then he used his ring to open a warp steps to the 5th floor right in front of Quilla's door. Thanks for coming. I'm sorry to bother you so often. Quilla hugged him as soon as he stepped inside and away from prying eyes. Stop saying that every time we meet, little one, he replied while patting her head. Ever since her return to the academy, Lith had done his best to stay close to her and help Quilla overcome her sense of guilt for killing Uriel while under Nailier's influence. Quilla needed all the support she could get. Lith was the only one in the group that had no role in the accident. Quilla was the main culprit, but Floria was the one that gave the order to save Journey first, while Freya mindlessly obeyed. Quilla considered him to be the only one that could judge the events without his own guilt clouding his mind. Chapter 340. Stop calling me little one. Quilla hated that moniker. It made her feel like a child. We're the same age, and I'm even quite tall for my age. With her 1.6 meters, 5 feet 3 inches, she was indeed tall by Mogur's standards. Because of her thin build, she seemed even taller. You are short compared to me. Lith shrugged. He never expected these murderers' anonymous meetings to become a habit for the surviving members of the group. Yet after noticing how much talking with him helped Floria to relieve her burden, Lith became the sponsor for the 3 girls until they felt ready to share their demons with each other. Freya and Floria had recovered quickly, maybe because the academy kept their minds busy, or maybe because after so many tears and so much grieving they had come to terms with the truth that saving both Journey and Uriel was just a pipe dream. The anniversary of Nailier's attack had recently passed, so Lith wasn't surprised when Quilla called him and asked for his help. He was glad to see she had been eating again. Her cheeks were rosy, and she was even starting to gain weight in the right places. How was it going with Kaelin? Before confronting the elephant in the room, Lith wanted to make Quilla relax with small talk about her boyfriend. We broke up yesterday, she replied with a sigh. Nice move, Freud. Lith inwardly cursed at his bad luck. It's not your fault. You had no way of knowing. Solus consoled him. I don't need to know who dumped who to tell you that he is a DCK. It's his loss. What makes you so sure it's his fault we broke up? Quilla chuckled. Lith's unconditional support meant a lot to her. Well, you started dating less than 2 months ago. The only reasons I can think of for such an abrupt ending is either you found out he was cheating on you, or he rushed for the 5th year and he wouldn't take a no for an answer. Either way, he is a DCK. 5th year was the Mogur's slang equivalent for the home run in a relationship. Quilla blushing instead of getting angry at her ex made Lith understand it was the latter. How is Tista doing? Quilla changed the topic. There were things she didn't like to talk about with Lith. Good. After the mock exam, she got a group of her own. 2 girls and 2 boys, just like ours. Tista's jury is still out on whether or not they are sincere. How come you're so relaxed? Aren't you worried about the boys? Quilla would have expected Lith to have run background checks or at least have intimidated them. Tista knows that if she needs my help, she just has to ask. Lith shrugged. She must learn to fend for herself and become a good judge of character. My role isn't to prevent her from stumbling and falling, only to help her in standing back up. Those words shocked Quilla. Lith was so calm and mature instead of his usual overprotective self. If someone tries something funny or hurts her, they may find themselves accident-prone, maybe even going missing for good, but that's another story. He winked. Lith meant to make her laugh with his joke, yet Quilla became sad. "Do you still think about Uriel?" she asked while staring at the ground. "Yes, almost every day." Lith sighed. "I still regret never making that trip with you guys at the end of the 4th year. I also regret not being a better friend. Before meeting you guys, I was completely alone. Don't get me wrong, I love my family, but they know nothing about magic. My mother still thinks that with a book and a bit of effort, everything is possible. She doesn't realize how much work there is behind every single spell. Nor does she realize the things I had to do to get where I am and earn all the money I bring home. I know it's my fault for always keeping them in the dark, but I felt lonely nonetheless. I don't know what would have become of me without you, Solus. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." He inwardly added, making Solus incredibly happy. "Even if I didn't realize it earlier, you guys are my magical family." After the 2nd exam, Uriel realized his faults and did his best to become a good friend, a brother. Yet I was too conceited to notice. Lith handed Quilla one of Uriel's notebooks. It was open to a page where, after discussing one of the impossible arrays, Uriel had let his mind wander about his feelings towards the group and Quilla in particular. He expressed his regrets for having treated her as an asset rather than a person at first, thinking only of how he could exploit her help to improve his grades. Uriel also wrote about how he had protected her from the shadows, getting rid of those who approached her with a hidden agenda. "I think Quilla is too kind for her own good." Uriel wrote, "Don't let her know that I told you, but I believe she's the most dazzling girl I've ever met. Despite Quilla's harsh life, she retained her sweet and loving personality. I wish I didn't always act like an idiot in front of her. I hope one day I'll be able to repay all the kindness she has showered me with, even when I did nothing to deserve it. I hope she'll think fondly of me like I do of her." Quilla started sobbing. She dropped the notebook, incapable of reading those words for 1 second longer. She felt undeserving of such affection. "How can you forgive me for what I did?" she said through the tears. "I'm sure Uriel spent his last moments of life hating me, thinking I had betrayed his trust." Lith embraced her. He caressed her hair and back while she vented her pain. "You have nothing to be forgiven for," he said. "I didn't show you that notebook to torture you, but only to let you know what his feelings for you were. Uriel could never hate you. He loved us too much to have such thoughts. I'm sure he was worried more about you than about himself." Lith paused for a second before continuing. "Quilla, no one blames you for what happened but yourself. Life is for the living, not for the dead. You can't let Nalier's madness ruin your life. Don't turn him into a vengeful ghost haunting you. That's the only thing Uriel could never forgive you for." Lith knew he was being a hypocrite, yet he didn't care. Carl's death was always lingering in the back of his mind, affecting every decision he made. Getting over the untimely death of a loved one wasn't something he should preach about to others. "My body count has already reached 3 digits, while Quilla has still a chance to be normal. She needs hope more than anything else," he thought, feeling that little, frail body quivering through tears. Lith deeply regretted having given Nalier a swift death instead of one filled with excruciating agony. Chapter 341. Months passed, and soon came the end of the 2nd trimester. Lith's teaching methods gave Martha a headache, but it was the good kind. Unlike other professors, Lith wouldn't leave everything to self-study and give only cryptic advice. Lith always gave a full explanation of the exercises he assigned, and even a short tutorial. The problem was that none of his lessons were simple. The exercises always required a deep understanding of the principles of advanced magic and the ability to put them into practice. It resulted in half the class acing the exercises and the other half failing miserably. Oddly enough, the results seemed to be influenced more by each student's amount of practice rather than by raw talent. The reason why Marth hadn't ordered him to use more orthodox methods was that those who thrived in Lith's lessons would also improve in most of the other subjects. Maybe these kinds of exercises are better suited for an elective class, or perhaps even an exam. Marth thought, "I'll give him until the end of the year before deciding what to do." Philid the Lindworm and the magical beasts of the Tron Woods survived the battle with the trolls. Lith returned the following weekend and brought all those who still lived back to their peak condition. He taught Philid several healing spells, so that even in his absence someone could take care of injuries or illnesses. Reaper introduced him to 17 magical beasts, but Lith dismissed half of them right off the bat. Only those who already had a cyan core were suitable for his experiments. The memory of the green cored BYK turning into an abomination was still fresh in his mind. After the near-death experience, Philid was strongly motivated to learn. Through relentless practice, he mastered accumulation and invigoration, becoming capable of assisting Lith in teaching the magical beasts. By the end of the year, out of the 9 magical beasts under his care, only Reaper and Lifebringer managed to evolve into a Manticore and a Kirin respectively. Lifebringer's new body resembled a gigantic white horse partially covered in scales. Emerald flames came out of his hooves and antlers. Thunder and 2 more beasts died in the attempt. None of them returned as an abomination. The failures taught Lith many things he had missed during Philid's awakening process, while the surviving members learned the importance of patience. I can use Solas's tower form to make the process easier and safer, but I can't risk revealing her existence. I won't trust any of them until I see how they behave when they believe they have reached my level of strength. He thought. Thanks to Solas, Lith was able to conceal part of his powers. He trusted magical beasts more than he did humans, but that didn't mean much. Lith had prepared several safeguards in preparation to kill anyone who dared to turn against him. Those 2 years as an assistant professor were one of the happiest times in Lith's life. His brother Aaron and his niece Lyria grew healthy thanks to their family's love. Lith didn't give them his special treatment. The idea of an awakened baby was something that gave him the creeps. Power without wisdom is the perfect recipe for a disaster. He thought. After Quilla graduated, she and Freya left the academy, leaving Lith truly alone for the first time in a very long time. Tista was busy with her own friends. Lith preferred her to live her life without being constantly overshadowed by his presence. He buried himself in magical research, trying to understand the various magical specializations while he was still at the academy and could ask for the help of his colleagues when necessary. Lith had several flings during his last year at the White Griffin. After his breakup with Floria, dating older women made it easy for him to get back in the game. The only real challenge he met was keeping an eye on Tista's natural awakening process. She wasn't a magical beast, so at least he could hope she wouldn't emit a light pillar from her body. After a year and a half at the academy, the impurities in her body were dangerously close to her bright green mana core. Incidents started to happen whenever she used first magic. Her Tier 0 spells would occasionally go wild, destroying her things or hurting her friends. Lith kept his finger crossed, hoping for the weekend to come before it was too late. He couldn't drag her away from the academy without a good reason, and with Minohar around, faking an illness would risk drawing his attention. As soon as Tista finished her weekly lessons, Lith brought her back to Lucia and into the Tron Woods. "Why are we here?" Tista was confused. Lith had refused to give her any explanation while still inside the academy, and had performed several warp steps to make sure no one was able to follow them unnoticed. He even stored all their academy-related enchanted items inside his pocket dimension to jam any kind of tracking devices. First, don't get scared. Second, do not scream. I don't want to draw any attention. Lith had brought her over the mana geyser in the woods he used for Solas's tower form. "We trained in the woods countless times. There's nothing scary here. Why should I ask?" "Good G." Her scream was muffled by Lith's hand. He had to admit that seeing his ring grow into a small building was quite a shocker. "Because of that, now can you promise me to keep your cool? Otherwise my hand will have to stay there." Tista nodded, turning from the tower to her brother over and over again. "Is this a mage tower?" "Yes. Now get in. We don't have all day." As soon as they walked in, a bright yellow wisp of light the size of a watermelon welcomed the siblings. Tista instinctively chanted a defensive spell, but Lith stopped her. "Tista, allow me to introduce you to Solas." "Solas, this is Tista. It's nice to finally get to know you, Tista." Solus's silvery voice made Tista's jaw fall to the ground. The tower speaks. She would have run away, screaming if Lith wasn't right beside her, acting like nothing was happening. Yes, she does. Also, she has a name, unless you have completely forgotten your manners. Lith sighed. At this pace the sun would set before he could even mention the awakening process. Does Floria know about your tower girlfriend? Tista didn't know whether to be more shocked or angry at all the secrets her brother kept from everyone else. She's not my girlfriend. I'm not his girlfriend. The two shouted in unison. Also no, I have never told anyone before, because, legendary artifacts rarely remain in the hands of someone stupid enough to flaunt them to the world. I'll be honest, I probably wouldn't have even told you until you finished the academy. I'm forced to do it now, because Solus is the best chance I have of saving your life. I beg your pardon? Tista had still hundreds of questions, but Litha's last words made her reconsider her priorities. Chapter 342. Lith spent the next hour explaining Tista about fake magic, true magic, and the awakening process. She trusted her brother with her life, yet even after meeting Solus, Tista found hard to believe such a massive info dump. Lith then cast perfectly silent spells of all tiers, from 1 to 5 in front of her eyes. Tista gasped for air. The whole Mogre was turning upside down. She kept hyperventilating due to stress until everything turned black. Has she fainted? Lith asked. Yes. Too bad we can't waste time being nice. Solus conjured ice-cold water and splashed Tista's face with it. Oh gods, I had the weirdest dream. When Tista saw Lith and Solus again, she realized it wasn't a dream. Lith sat on the ground beside her, putting his arm around her shoulders to keep her calm. Is everything I learned so far a lie, then? She asked after a while. No, it's just part of a much more complex truth. Think about it. We and magical beasts having two different kinds of magic doesn't make sense. We breathe the same air, we eat the same things. Why magic should be any different? Lith replied. What's wrong with me? Am I going to die? She embraced Lith in search of warmth. Tista was so shocked that she had yet to dry herself from the water. There's nothing wrong with you, and you're going to be just fine. Lith made the water disappear and had Solus turn the heat up in the tower. Yet to succeed, I need your help. There are some unknown factors that I had no opportunity to study, so I need you to be completely honest with me. Don't try to be a hero. If anything feels weird or painful, you have to tell me. Weird how? Tista blushed. To keep you alive and healthy, I have removed impurities from your body since a tender age. I stopped as soon as I noticed your awakening process started because I have no idea if it made things easier or harder for you. Also, you have a bright green core. So far, my only successful experiments involve cyan cores. Lith sighed. Wait, didn't you tell me you had a green one too? What's the difference between you and me? The difference is me awakening early. My body developed like that of a magical beast. I grew slowly in strength, so my body had all the time it needed to adapt. Yours is going straight from a dormant green core to an active cyan one. It could either kill you or turn you into an abomination. Lith hugged her tightly, kissing her forehead. The thought of losing her was unbearable. I'll never be able to live with myself if she dies because of me. Lith thought. She'd be dead without you. Solus rebuked. Now bring her to the basement. We have no time to lose. Lith helped Tista to get up and did as instructed. He explained to her how awakening usually involved the impurities reaching the mana core, triggering some kind of reaction that made both the core and the body stronger. I still have no clue about the details, but I think that expelling the impurities is only part of the process. During the refinement, the body undergoes a transformation that corrects any flaw humans normally develop during their lives. If I'm right, the stronger the core, the greater the number of flaws the body needs to fix. It's an incredibly delicate process, like using body sculpting on a healthy subject. Hence, the body undergoes a lot of stress, and if it's unable to cope, the final result is death. In theory, you grew with very few imperfections. It should make things easier. What if you are wrong? Tista asked. Then by removing your impurities, I've doomed you. The sibling shivered in fear, but Tista only held Litha's hand tighter. What do I have to do? Lith brought her in the tower's basement, in the nearest point to the mana geyser. Then he explained to her both invigoration and accumulation, while Solus filled the air to the brim with world energy. If you learn accumulation before your awakening, we can have an idea if your body is ready. If you feel no discomfort, it would be a great sign. If you learn invigoration, instead, it can help you survive in case anything goes wrong. Tista sat cross-legged on the warm stone floor, taking deep breaths and following Litha's instructions. She was scared, but at the same time excited. She had started studying magic to feel closer to her brother, but now it was an important part in her life. She loved being a mage, and the idea of becoming part of something bigger filled her with joy. The high mana density in the room tickled her skin. She could almost feel the energy moving around her, seeping into her body. A living tower, true magic, and secrets no one but the beasts know. Mama's right. Since Litha's birth life really turned into a fairy tale. Now I understand why all the secrecy about his abilities and how he managed to cure what even Nana was helpless against. Even if I die today, I have no regrets. Without him, I would have spent the few years I had left agonizing in my bed. Tista thought, yet tears streamed down her eyes, thinking back to her past life. Is anything wrong? Lith asked as soon as he noticed. I lied to myself. Tista said, I have lots of regrets. I'm scared and I don't want to die. The first phrase baffled Lith, the others not so much. We are on the same page. Now keep breathing and tell me, how do you feel? Tista took in a couple of deep breaths from the nose before answering. I feel hot and ticklish. Is it normal? Yes. Leet. How the heck I'm supposed to know what's normal? It's my first time awakening a human too. As long as she doesn't feel pain, it's a good sign. He thought. The hours passed. Lith could only check on Tista and Solus from time to time. Neither of them could afford losing focus or to get tired. Until Tista's awakening started, Lith preferred to have them rest, if needed. I think I learned invigoration. Tista suddenly said, I can feel a warm flow of mana entering my body. Is this the world energy? It's so different from casting a spell with fake mag. Don't lose the breathing rhythm. Lith scolded her. When the process starts, it will be painful. If you lose the rhythm, invigoration stops working. Tista wanted to rebuke, but realizing Lith was just worried about her, she moved to accumulation instead. Now she could visualize the impurities nearing her core, giving her a pricking sensation whenever they touched. Tista was about to report it to Lith when a big impurity struck her core, merging with it. Pain invaded her body, almost breaking her concentration. Tista had never felt such agony since she was a kid, when even breathing was a miracle to her. Pain was an old friend, so she welcomed it back, gritting her teeth, and without losing her breathing rhythm. It has begun, Solus said. Chapter 343. One after the other, the impurities reached Tista's green core, forcing their way in. The mana reacted strongly to the invasion, giving its all to wipe out the foreign objects. Lith could watch via invigoration a small-scale war of matter versus energy taking place inside Tista's body. The green core slowly turned black as more and more impurities amassed inside. The pain grew as Tista's core darkened, until Tista couldn't bear it anymore and screamed at the top of her lungs. Lith knew the pain was normal, so he kept watching. It had happened to him multiple times. Tista's mana core started to pulse, contracting and expanding like it was going to blow. Then it released a powerful wave of cyan mana that purged the impurities inside and outside itself. Lith could see the mana coursing through her body like it was searching for impurities to vent its wrath upon. Whenever it encountered them, they would be flushed out, no matter the cost. Flesh and muscles were torn, bones cracked. It was like Tista's body was suddenly disgusted by itself and had decided to start over from scratch. Tista's pain was nearing its peak. Lith kept watching and waiting. The refining process seemed identical to his own. The only thing he could do was to ease her pain with light magic and give her a bit of his life force whenever her body experienced a major breakdown. Not knowing what was actually helpful and what wasn't, he couldn't directly interfere. The self-inflicted wounds brought Tista to the verge of death, yet he couldn't heal her without risking doing more harm than good. Lith and Solus did their best to keep her stable, moving alongside the mana flow to not obstruct its movements. The process lasted barely a few minutes, but to both siblings it might as well have been hours. Black goo came out from Tista's pores, making her puke, cry, and bleed impurities all at the same time. Only when the last drop was shed was Tista's body fully repaired. Lith destroyed the tar-like substance with darkness magic while assessing the damage. She expelled way fewer impurities than I usually do, yet the pain was much worse. He thought, I think it's because at first you expelled only impurities and your body got progressively stronger and more resistant to pain. She had to endure broken bones right off the bat. The pain must have been unbearable. Solus replied. Lith checked Tista with invigoration again. Aside from being unconscious, she was perfectly fine. Her core was now deep cyan and was constantly absorbing the world energy Solus had conjured inside the basement. Solus, can you make a room for her too? She needs to sleep, and so do I. Lith was exhausted too. Tiptoeing across a minefield and getting out alive would have been easier than what he had done to not get in Tista's mana's way while keeping her alive. Sure I can. My mana core may still be deep green, but that is more than enough. During the past 2 years, Solus's mana core had been further enhanced, allowing her to complete the first floor of the tower. Unfortunately, she had yet to acquire any semblance of a body. I'll also pump world energy into her room non-stop. It should help her to recover faster. Lith brought Tista to a brand new room that was a perfect replica of her own at the academy before going to sleep. Tista woke up several hours later, feeling like someone had kicked her all the way back home. The first thing she noticed was that her body felt different. She was faster, stronger, but most of all smellier. Did I fall into an open sewer or what? She took off her dress, throwing it into a corner, yet the stench didn't subside. Or what? Solus replied, making Tista flinch. She wasn't expecting company. The impurities can have that effect. Follow me. I prepared you a bath. Solus was relieved seeing Tista was all right. She was also incredibly embarrassed. After the awakening, Tista's physical appearance hadn't changed much, but it was Solus's first time seeing her naked. She was now a gorgeous woman who stood 1.76, 5 feet 9 inches, meters tall with waist-length auburn hair containing several shades of red. What made Solus feel really awkward wasn't just the fact that Tista's 3 sizes were 92D 58-88 centimeters, 30-70 23-35 inches, but also the perfect proportions of her body. I bet countless artists would be glad to spend their lives trying to reproduce her symmetry. Solus thought while staring at Tista's oval face and her delicate features. By my maker, if it keeps up this way, either my self-esteem will crumble or I'll develop a crush on her. How long have you known my brother? Tista asked, snapping Solus out of a reverie. A long time, since he was 4 years old. Now that she was submerged in water and foam, Solus had a much easier time thinking straight. Do you want me to show you? Solus had already asked Litha's opinion via their mind link. She already knows a lot. There's no harm in sharing the rest. Just keep my first 2 lives out of the picture and enjoy your first human friend, was his answer. Tista and Solus talked a lot about themselves, true magic, and their plans for the future. Solus would often show her images from their easiest battles or the evolved beasts they befriended. Once I graduate from the academy, I want to see the world. When I was younger, Lucia was my everything, but now it feels like a cage, just like my house was back when I was still ill. I want to see the capital, the big cities I visited during my house call for the White Griffin. I know people will be the same assholes wherever I go, but the scenery of some cities just stole my heart. What about you, Solus? There's not much I can plan. She sighed. Soon we will join the army. That's all I know. I never got why Lith wants to enlist. Can you explain it to me? Tista asked. It's not for me to say. How deep is your bond? Pretty deep. Do the two of you ever separate? I mean, where were you while Lil Brother was with Floria? Did you watch or something? Tista's question made the wisp turn beet red. No, I didn't. I always gave them their privacy. I can isolate myself from the outside world when it's necessary. Oh, Lith just woke up. He will be glad to know you are all right. Solus quickly changed the topic, materializing a replica of the Uniforms Academy out of thin air. I can give you any dress you want, but you can't take them outside. My creations disappear beyond the tower's walls. She explained. Tista dried herself with a wave of her hand before wearing her new clothes. She entered Litha's room without knocking. He was focused on practicing Silverwing's hexagram and another impossible array at the same time. What's that? Tista was referring to the six-pointed star inscribed inside a silver circle originating from Litha's right hand. Uriel's hexagram. Litha's replied, something he theorized, and I'm working to turn it into reality. I still have a long way to go. Also, I could have been naked. Yeah, right. Even when we were kids, you always swam in the river with your clothes on, and your door was always closed whenever you changed. You always hated feeling vulnerable, lil brother. Isn't that the reason why you bought the Skinwalker armor? She pointed out. Point taken, but still. Lith dropped the matter. He preferred to explain to her the basics of true magic, since it was almost time to go home before Alina started to worry. Chapter 344. There are two things that you must never forget about being an awakened. Lith explained. The first is that our secret cannot be shared with anyone. The history of Garland Continent is full of mages and researchers that go missing in accidents when they try to share their theories about it. I have no idea how many awakened ones are out there. So far I met only Nalier and Farg. I only discovered their nature when they decided so. Sadly, there is no way to tell a fake from a true mage. Two of our professors are awakened. The news shocked Tista. Yes. Lith nodded. What I'm trying to say is that not only you can't tell anyone about your new powers, but also that if you ever get found out, you have to kill them. Litha's eyes and voice were stone cold. Kill them? Why? Think about it. Lith sneered. A mage is a weapon, and as such is strictly regulated. An awakened one is both a weapon and the key to longevity. What do you think nobles and royals would do to us, to our family, to get their hands on such power? Lith paused, letting Tista ponder on his words. She wasn't a naive little girl anymore. The academy had been her wake-up call. Tista now knew what to expect from others. Do you mean that not even your group? No one knows but you. Lith shook his head. Not even Floria? No. She noticed something was amiss with me. But Floria never pushed me to reveal her the truth. It's one of the reasons why she was so precious to me. Lith sighed. The second thing is that every time you use accumulation or invigoration, your life gets longer. By drawing the world energy, you'll consume less and less of your own, allowing you to live for centuries. It means you'll see our family, your husband and children wither and die while you'll still look 20. I'm giving you a choice I didn't have. You can either just practice true magic and live a normal life, or also use those techniques to become stronger, but be progressively set apart from humans. I'm sorry, but I need some air. Tista stood up and ran away from Litha's room. Her head was spinning because of all those sudden revelations. She felt suffocating. Despite the tower was actually spacious, Tista had the impression the walls were collapsing on her. Only when she walked out of the door and into the familiar Tron woods the world seemed to regain a semblance of normality. Would you like some company, or do you prefer to stay alone? Solus's voice made her flinch, but just for a second. Oh, Solus, thank the gods you are here. Tista turned around and hugged the wisp. Much to Solus's surprise, her arms didn't pass through. She could actually feel Tista's embrace, as if it was Litha's. Can we take a walk? All that talking about killing in cold blood and immortality seriously freaked me out. Being touched by another human being freaked out Solus too. Also, she had no idea what to say to Tista without scaring her. Solus knew Tista like she was her own sister, while Tista knew nothing about her. Sure, but I can't get very far from the tower. The further I get, the smaller the wisp becomes until I'm forced back inside. Solus did her best to not let her voice quiver. By my maker, our first meeting couldn't go any worse. First, she took me for a peeping Tom. Now she'll pity me. I must find something smart or funny to say to salvage the situation. Tista walked around and away from the tower until Solus's wisp became the size of a tennis ball. For several minutes, they remained silent. The only audible sounds were the rustling of the leaves and the wood's bird calls. That situation was a nightmare for Solus. Her consciousness was far enough from Lith to not feel his presence in her mind anymore, and at the same time, she realized how awkward that quiet was. Oh gods, why does she say nothing? I'm not used to silence. Lith's mind is always a noisy mess. Am I supposed to break the ice, or is it better to wait for her to open up? Solus's first human interaction wasn't as she had always pictured it. She had been linked to Lith's mind and emotions for so long that she was not used not to know what the other person was thinking. Tista's expression was unfathomable to her. She seemed to be worried, disgusted, and annoyed all at the same time. Solus started panicking, thinking that Tista's silence was due to her regretting the choice of bringing Solus along. I'm so confused. What do you think I should do, Solus? Tista asked. I'm sorry, I have no idea what you were talking about. Solus's voice was cracking due to the strain she was under. I'd like you to get closer to the tower, though. Do you think Lith is right about killing? She continued walking at a fast pace. Please, Tista, get back. One more step, and you'll be stark naked. My clothes, remember? Solus yelped. Her wisp was on the verge of disappearing. Tista cursed at her stupidity, walking towards the tower as fast as she could. She noticed how her body had never felt so light. As for the killing, yes. I think he is right. Solus sighed. The wisp was back at half of its original size. I was just like you at the beginning, but all the things Lith and I experienced together changed my mind. Even if the person that discovers your secret is a good one, would you really risk your whole family's lives just to save a stranger? Would you risk them becoming hostages to keep you on a leash? There's nothing that people with power wouldn't do to not lose their power, even using slave items. Do you want to be a slave? Solus projected in front of Tista some of the images from Nailier's attack. The chaos and bloodshed forced her to avert her eyes. Please stop. I got what you mean. Solus stopped the projection, giving Tista some time to think. What do you think is better between longevity and power? I mean, the stronger I get, the longer I'll live, but I'm scared of ending up all alone. You have already lived for so long. Do you have any advice for me? Solus felt flattered by so much trust in her judgment despite they had just shortly met. Honestly, no. I have no choice on the matter. I'm glad I lost all my previous memories. Otherwise, I would have gone insane a long time ago. There's one thing I can tell you, though. Your brother and I are as scared as you are of being alone. Lith always worries about the day he will grieve your deaths, while I worry about him. I'm so scared of losing Lith that I can't sleep for days after he fights a strong enemy. I'm scared at the thought that he will grow old and die, while I'll be forced to look for a new host. Chapter 345. Why do the idea so terrible? Seeing her issues through Solus's eyes made her worries seem so small that Tista was almost ashamed of herself. I'm not a thing, okay? Solus lashed out in frustration. It was the first time she had ever laid her worst fears bare in front of someone that wasn't Lith. I have feelings, memories. I learn new things every day. What would you do if you lost the person you have spent your whole life with? Someone who shared every one of your feelings, dreams, even thoughts. You can't simply replace such a person with a random stranger and move on. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. Tista had never considered Solus like an object. She simply didn't expect her to be so fond of her brother. What kind of relationship do the two of you have? I don't know either. Solus's voice sounded depressed. Solus shared with Tista how her lack of a body made her feel incomplete. How she hated being just a voice in his head. To be always powerless whenever someone needed her help. After hearing about all the things they had gone through together, Tista believed to have a proper answer to her own question. If after sharing so much for so many years you two don't hate each other's guts, you must be soulmates. Thanks, your words mean the world to me, but you are too kind and naive. It's only because of our bond that we share so many things. I forced it on him years ago, otherwise I doubt Lith would have opened to me. I think he likes me, but more like a friend. Floria instead. What about Floria? Tista hoped for some juicy gossip. Neither the Verhin or the Ernas had any idea how close the two actually got during the academy. Sorry, but it's not up to me to tell. Let's go back to the tower. During the weekend, Lith taught Tista about fusion and spirit magic. Whenever she had free time, he would pass on her all of his knowledge about true magic, all the tips and tricks he had learned over the years to disguise it as fake magic or make use of it during the exams. He also introduced her to Philid, Reaper, and Lifebringer. Tista had never spoken with a magical beast, let alone with an evolved monster. In her eyes, they were all big and scary. Philid, with his serpentine body and 2 clawed arms, was apparently the most menacing of the 3. At least until she noticed they were as scared of her brother as she was of them. Reaper the Manticore had the body and the head of a lion with quills like those of a porcupine protruding from most of his body. He was big enough to look Tista in the eyes. He also had black feathered wings on his back, horns like an ibex on his head, and the tip of his tail was a mass of quills. Each one was infused with a different element and ready to be thrown. Lifebringer the Kirin had grown even bigger, developing a new horn in the center of his head, and what looked like a long beard made out of emerald flames covered his chin. The 4 of them would practice and spar together to get used to their new abilities. "Why are you still here?" Lith asked Philid. "I'm not going anywhere until you deliver me my axes." The Lindworm snorted. "Also, I still suck at magic. I'm even worse than the pipsqueak here." He pointed at Tista. "How's her smell?" "Delicious. I mean, she's definitely human." Philid's ribs still ached at the memory of how Lith appreciated his jokes. Lith made for each one of them a dimensional and a communication amulet, so that they could ask for help if necessary. He also realized for Philid a couple of twin axes on the cheap. The Lindworm couldn't provide him materials or magic crystals, so Lith infused the weapons with what by Forge Mastering standard was considered to be the bare minimum, making them sharper, lighter, sturdier, and capable of self-repairing if infused with mana. Their only special property was they were able to shrink enough so that if Philid ever learned how to assume human form, he could still use them. The Lindworm had never owned an enchanted weapon, so he considered them masterpieces and gloated for days, thinking of having scammed Lith for good. Lith and Tista's last year of the academy was uneventful. Lith's only worry was to dodge all the noble dames and mages of marrying age that pestered him on a regular basis. Most of his female students couldn't wait for the 3rd exam to come since their hot teacher was of their same age and still single. Lith disappointed them all by disappearing the very next day after the exam. He and Tista could finally rush back at Lucia. Attending the academy after the 3rd exam was a mere formality. Both of them wanted to pay their respect to their old mentor before it was too late. Without Tista helping her, Nana's health deteriorated over time, no matter how much effort Lith put into treating her condition. Death and old age were 2 enemies that even he couldn't defeat. Many people were assembled outside her house to pay her a last visit. Nana hadn't become nicer just because of her impending death. She refused any visitor aside from Count Lark and the Verhen household. Damn hypocrites. Nana's voice was weak, but still full of anger. Even on my deathbed, they still try to suck up on me. Never trust shameless people, kids. She said to both her apprentices. "Isn't there something we can do?" Tista asked Lith for the umpteenth time in the last months. "No, we aren't gods." Lith shook his head. He had already tried every spell in his book. "Master, you never told me who betrayed you. I could take care of them for you if you wish." "Bah, hear me well, King of the Spirits. What kind of mentor would I be if I added my grudge to your already enormous baggage? Do you think I'm stupid? I always knew there is a darkness inside of you, and I'm proud you never became its slave." Nana wheezed for several seconds to catch her breath. She had little time left and still a few things to say. "Thank you, Lark. Despite my stigma, you never stopped being my friend. A good, honest friend I never deserve. If there are gods on the other side, I'll make sure they compensate you properly, or they'll taste my wrath. Don't search for my enemies, Lith. It's only thanks to them that I had the opportunity to meet you and your sister. I rejoice for your achievements like they were mine. I know it's hypocritical to say from someone that never wanted a family, but I'm glad a part of me will always live inside your magic. Thanks to me, a new magical bloodline was born. My enemies will probably follow me in death out of desperation." She half laughed, half coughed the last sentence. My only regret is that I failed you both. I never managed to teach you what you truly lack. Lith, the king of the spirits, must be strong, wise, but also loving. Otherwise, he is just a monster. Tista, my fairy queen, if you don't learn how to close your heart to others, they will rip it out your chest. Whenever someone bothers you, don't give them a second chance. Do like I would and fry they their ass. After making sure her disciples understood her last wish, Nana fell asleep. Everyone remained to her side until her heart stopped. Chapter 346. Nana's death had a deep impact on both Lith and Tista, although for entirely different reasons. For Lith, it was one mourning too much. In the past 4 years, he had lost more people he loved than in his whole first life. He left the academy for good after saying goodbye to all his colleagues. It's a pity Lith didn't change his mind, Marth said while drinking vintage wine with his friends from the light department. He could have been a good professor after some proper training. I have decided to turn his version of Principles of Advanced Magic into an elective course. Many find it difficult, but those who succeed reap too many benefits to discard it as a failed experiment. I'm glad he's leaving. Vaster took a big sip from his cup. He's still young. The academy is better suited for old coots like us or madmen. Our duty is not only to teach magic, but also to guide people in life. Lith can't guide anyone. The kid is still lost in whatever the gods threw at him. Indeed, Manohar emptied his cup in one gulp. He liked drinking with company. Alcohol made people easier to bear for him, and vice versa. Although I resent being called an old coot. I'm the youngest one in the room, after all. Also, although he may be an odd fella, I can guarantee you that Marth is not a madman. You should apologize to him, Vaster. It was hard to understand when Manohar was serious and when he wasn't, especially after the second bottle. The three men laughed merrily at the joke. They were eager for winter to come. It was the only time of the year they could properly rest. For Tista, Nana's death was the moment she became truly aware of her own mortality. She had lost several patients over the years, but never someone she cared about. Tista realized she had to decide if power was worth so much suffering. She found solace in spending time together with her family, but at the same time, she felt isolated. They knew nothing about magic, and even less about awakened ones, so she spent more and more time with Solus. Lith was happy his companion had finally found a friend. Sometimes he would leave Solus in her tower form, allowing the two girls to be alone while he was elsewhere. Have you decided what you want to do? Solus asked. Yeah, I'm done with the academy for now. I'll spend the winter together with my family and friends. I'll leave the first day of spring in a random direction. Tista replied. For a while, I'll stop being a healer. I'm sick of always having to worry so much for others. I want some me time for once. Money will not be an issue for a long time. I never spent a dime of what I earned working with Nana. Lith always paid for everything. What about you? Meaning, Solus was confused. Are you still unclear about your feelings for my brother? I'm still as clueless as I was the first day I met you. She sighed. Well, you can't just live your life like a damn sidekick. You're a great girl, Solus. Maybe you two should work on getting you a body. Maybe the reason why you're so confused is because you spend too much time together. You need to make your own friends, experience a life that's only your own. How would I survive? Without a mana geyser or your brother, I won't last long. Lith would be forced to stick around and delay all of his plans until I'm done. It wouldn't be fair. I don't think so. Tista shook her head. Maybe having your roles reversed for once might help both of you. I believe Lith would be happy to give you a chance at life. Meanwhile, Lith was at the Erna's household. Most of his recent losses were related to his life at the academy, so he felt the need to share his burden with someone that had lived those events with him. Quilla was not an option since she had too much on her plate already. That had led Freya and Lith to become closer, even if it wasn't in the way she would have liked. With her family's history, Freya was the one who could best relate to his mental state. Lith was lying on a sofa, with his head on Freya's lap while she caressed his soft hair. Good gods, when will you stop growing? She lamented. Lith was now an adult by Mogr standards and also a giant at 1.83 meters tall, 6. Soon, I hope. Otherwise, I'll be forced to spend a fortune on clothing. The Skinwalker armor is nearing its limits, and I'd like to avoid getting a new one. He sighed. I'm glad to see that you and Quilla are all right. After losing Protector, Celia, Uriel, Floria, and now Nana, I don't know if I can take another blow. Protector, Celia, and Floria are not dead, she rebuked. They are simply gone, lost to me, disappeared from my life. Lith cut her short. What's the difference? Until Protector stops playing dead, I will not be able to find him. As for Floria, I haven't heard from her in 2 years. She might have become a completely different person. I'm sure she still cares for you. Yeah? Then why did she never call? Not even for my birthday? Lith rebuked. I don't know. Maybe for the same reason you never called her? Freya clicked her tongue in disapproval. Wherever she is, she has the right to be happy. I prefer to be a happy memory, rather than a chain preventing her from enjoying what she now has. That's why I don't call her. That's funny. She said almost the same thing the last time we talked. She what? Lith tried to jump up on his feet, but Freya pushed his chest, forcing him back down. Did you really expect Floria not to call her family for 2 years? If you want to know where she is, you just have to ask. What are you going to do with your life? Lith asked. First, I'll pretend to not notice you, just dodge the question. Freya sneered. Second, since Quilla's going back to the academy in spring, I think I'll take a few missions from the association. I'll see the world, meet new people, and rack up merits. 3 birds with 1 stone. Hopefully, I'll also find a decent man. Both the academy and the court have been an utter disappointment. Freya's love life was similar to Lith's. It was filled with short, meaningless relationships that frustrated her to no end. When spring arrived, the heirs of the Ernas and Verhen households moved on the next step of their lives. Lith reached the recruitment center fully prepared. Everything valuable he had was safely stored in his pocket dimension, while Solus was concealed in his mouth, wrapped around one of his teeth. Orion had explained the whole procedure to him, allowing Lith to make preparation for when things would go south. Always the optimist. Solus sighed. Always the nagger. Lith replied, besides, I resent that. Chapter 347. The optimism? No, the fact that I proposed countless bodies to you, and you always refused. Now that Tista said the very same thing you're considering the idea, only idiots never change their minds. Yours was the right idea at the wrong moment. Solus replied, we'll think about it after the military. I can't have you defect. Also, thanks for delaying your departure until spring. You're welcome. Tista is your first human friend. You two deserve some time together. I love you both, and I'm happy you found a good friend in each other. Name. The army clerk's harsh voice interrupted their conversation. The woman loved her job, but repeating the same lines over and over ruined her mood. Lith Verhen. Oh gods. When she inserted a name into her amulet, the clerk was used either having to fill out a form or finding a short resume, if the candidate was a noble. In Lith's case, so much information popped out of her screen that she thought he had a rap sheet as long as her arm. She was about to call security when she noticed they were actually meritorious deeds. Son, are you sure you want to join? She stood up, giving him the salute. Why do you ask? Lith lifted an eyebrow in confusion. Only spoiled rich kids enlist in spring. Your timing is terrible. Not to mention that with your build, there is no chance in the Netherworld other cadets will see you as anything but a noble. I'm fully prepared for that. I'm not enlisting to make friends, but thanks for your concern anyway. Much appreciated. Lith returned the salute and offered her his hand, which she promptly shook. No, thank you. You are one of us that made it. A commoner that graduated from one of the 6 academies and even received his last name from the royals. You are a beacon of hope for my children. Zonta, that was the clerk's name, filled out Lith's form while giving him the same advice Orion did and warning him about all the dangers he was likely to face. Lith nodded from time to time, giving her the empty dimensional amulet that he had prepared when asked. From now on, you're only allowed to introduce yourself as Lith, Cadet 1416. The use of any kind of magic outside of chore magic is forbidden except for protecting your life or that of others. I also need your communication amulet. Why? Lith asked while doing as instructed. Contacting anyone outside training is forbidden for the next 6 months, but we are not monsters. This way, if something bad happens, we can relay the information to you. Lith was unpleasantly surprised the army was able to operate someone else's amulet without their permission. Note to self, forge master another amulet with safeguards. He thought, done. Do you want sugar or milk with your coffee, Mr. CEO? Solus giggled after performing her best secretary impression. Zana led Lith to a changing room before giving him his uniform and boots. It consisted of a deep green shirt and pants. They were made of a thin but robust fabric Lith had never seen before. The service number was embroidered over his heart and was the only thing bearing an enchantment. As soon as he finished wearing them, a soldier accompanied him to a warp gate. The destination is random, he explained. It will lead you to one of the farthest available boot camps from here. Don't wander around and wait for someone to pick you up. Lith stepped through the portal, finding himself in a place where the climate was much colder than Darios's. A cold wind blew over his face, carrying the smells typical of winter. Spring had yet to reach that region. Luckily, the uniform turned out to be pretty warm. Either that or my tolerance to cold has further improved. During the last 2 years, Lith had use accumulation almost non-stop. His mana core was now bright cyan. It was only a matter of time before it was refined to blue. After each breakthrough, his body had become stronger to the point that most of the things that would threaten a normal man's life were merely a bother to him. Normal weapons couldn't cut his skin, just like normal fire and cold left him unfazed. The camp was the size of a small city and was filled with barracks, depots, and outside training facilities. The spot Lith appeared was close to a stone building, but no one came to him. Lith stood there for more than half an hour, using accumulation to kill time. 2 men with uniforms similar to Lith's, but heavier and with the rank of corporal came out of the building. They were both in their mid-20s and looked at him with a mix of surprise and worry. Good gods, this one is huge. The corporals were above average height, making them 15 centimeters, 6 inch shorter than Lith. Kid, why didn't you come inside? The standard uniform is too light for Gramatros's climate. Aren't you freezing out here? Lith gave them the salute before answering. I'm as green as a grassland. They told me to wait, and so I did. The cold doesn't bother me, sir. The man on the left laughed at his words, while the one on the right facepalmed himself. Just because you joined the army doesn't mean you must relinquish common sense. You can have at least knocked and asked for directions. Despite what you might have heard, playing pranks on the cadets, it's not part of our job. They led Lith inside and gave him a change of clothes before accompanying him to the cadets' quarters. Along the road, Lith noticed that the housings were split into 2, a block for the male soldiers and another for the female. The house assigned to him was quite spacious, but consisted of a single room. Aside from beds and lockers, it was empty. This is where you'll live for the next 6 months, unless you find someone willing to house you. One of the corporals explained. Pick an empty bed and a locker as your own. You can imprint them like this. He moved his hand over the service number, releasing a bit of mana. It generated a small golden cloud that followed the corporal's hand. You have to imprint every tool and personal item you'll receive. It will be your responsibility to take good care of them. Someone will be here shortly to give you and the other new recruits a tour of the camp and explain the basic rules. I suggest that you use this time to get acquainted with the rest of the cadets. They pointed at a small group of youths. They were all about Lith's age, but shorter and lighter. They looked at him, emitting grunting noises and whispering mean words. Seems Anna was right. They really believe I'm a noble. Lith smiled in amusement. Look what the spring fairy brought in, a goddamn noble, said a cadet of average height with a mean voice. He walked towards Lith like he owned the place. The others were about to follow suit, but something blocked them. Lith had learned to control his killing intent, which was paralyzing everyone but the leader of the pack. Listen well, S.H. Theodom Lywell. The words died in his mouth when Lith lifted him up by his throat with one hand, bringing his face close to his own. Thanks, Lywell. When were you born? It's the only other thing I need to know for your gravestone. Chapter 348. Lywell turned pale, and not just because Lith's words didn't sound like a joke. His lungs were burning, yearning for air, yet Lith's grip didn't let him take a single breath. He was enjoying the sight of his opponent turning red first and cyanotic later. No arrays, nor recording devices, right, Solus? Lith asked just to be safe. None. After all, there are only 6 great academies and countless boot camps. If they had the resources to allocate a power core in each one of them, the Griffin Kingdom would have long conquered Mogr. I don't think that committing murder on your first day is a good idea, though. Lith snarled, abruptly releasing Lywell and making him fall but first onto the ground. Since we're going to live together under the same roof for the next 6 months, this time I'll let you go with a warning, Lith said while Lywell coughed and wheezed, gasping for air. I don't know who you are or why you hate nobles. Honestly, I don't care. I'm not a noble either, but the next time you or one of your friends mess with me again, I'll make sure it will also be the last. Lith knew it was likely that no matter what he said, things would get ugly. Yet Solus was right. He couldn't kill them all, and hoped to get away with it. The silver lining was that there was almost nothing a normal human could do to him, whereas he had countless ways to make their lives a living hell. Lith ignored their hateful gazes and chose a corner bed for himself. The imprinting process was simple. Once his mana activated the spell contained in the service number stitched on his chest, a small golden cloud followed his hand. Lith's service number was now engraved on the bed frame and stitched to the blankets. He had no reason to pick a locker, since they were all empty. What the heck is going on here? Asked a rough voice that made everyone turn around from Lith to the door. Standing there was a tough-looking 1.75, 5 feet 9 inches, tall man in his mid-30s. Unlike the cadets, his uniform was light blue with staff sergeant stripes on his sleeves. As soon as he entered the house, the sergeant took off his wide-brimmed hat while looking around to assess the situation. There was one cadet sitting on the floor with a terrified expression on his face. Another one was walking around like he owned the place, while all the others were huddled up in a corner, like lambs facing a pack of wolves. Cadet Lywell, get your ass up and pray the gods I like your explanation. The sergeant had his name and service number embroidered on a pocket right above his chest. His name was Tepper. That guy's insane, he replied, pointing at Lith. He attacked me for no reason and almost choked me to death. Everyone here witnessed it. Both Lith and Tepper didn't miss Lywell's voice getting higher or him avoiding to make eye contact. Not to mention that his story sounded fake like a $3 bill. If the big guy attacked him, why is Lywell without a scratch? Tepper was unaware Lith had healed his opponent to not leave bruises. At the same time, I doubt someone could be so stupid to attack a monster like that alone. Is it true, Cadet? Lith. While the sergeant looked at Lith's service number and someone learned his name, Lith noticed a couple of interesting things. First, Tepper's perfectly shaven face revealed a few small scars. They were too small for being the result of an injury, but too big for being caused by a healer's incompetence. That's intentional. He kept them as a memento. Either this guy's sentimental or batch T crazy. Lith thought. The second thing was his second question contained a subtle strain of killing intent. Mana and aggression had been mixed to his voice, making the victim feel pressured. It was something he had only seen Journey doing. Sort of. Lith shrugged before telling him most of the truth. That level of killing intent was useless against him. In his version of the story, he belittled the amount of strength employed and made Lywell appear as the sole culprit. Let me get this straight. Lywell threatened you, you roughened him up, and the others just stood there and did nothing. The sergeant questioned the other cadets, who unlike Lith folded like a cheap shirt as soon as the killing intent hit them. The bad news is that you are all in trouble. Tepper said, for assaulting a comrade and lying to a commanding officer, Lywell is trash. Resorting to violence when a glare would suffice speaks volumes about Lith. You guys back there are the worst, though. You didn't stop Lywell despite knowing that what he was doing was wrong. You didn't help him when he was in trouble and ratted him out without a second of hesitation. The army isn't only about giving and receiving orders. It's mostly about loyalty, camaraderie, and mutual responsibility. With friends like you, one doesn't need enemies. The good news is that since you are all guilty, I'll punish no one. I'll just tag you as one of the worst units I have ever trained. Follow me. Tepper led them to the next block and picked up 3 female cadets, making the group a 10-people unit. He then gave the unit a tour of the camp before taking them to the barber. The man gave the girls a buzz cut with air magic, while after a hand sign from the sergeant, he shaved the others bald. "I guess he's punishing your misbehavior," Solus said. "Why you didn't make up a story or something? It would have been useless. They could have backed up each other, painting me into a corner. By healing Lywell's neck before letting him go, I've turned him into a liar. By not mentioning the other's role in the attack, it appears I'm protecting them as a good little soldier would do." Lith inwardly grinned. When they told the truth and exposed my lie, it made them appear as ungrateful cowards. Perfect damage control. Tepper then explained to them how to address a superior officer, what would be their routine for the following 6 months, and that fraternizing with members of the same unit was forbidden. Lith and the others inwardly sighed at those words. One of the girls was really cute, even with the buzz cut. "Dating members of other units is allowed," the sergeant said with a grin. "I swear to the gods that if any of you manages to get a single date despite your training, your duties, and the curfew, I'll eat my hat." During the following days, Lith's unit underwent a series of exercises to measure their physical abilities and separate the wheat from the chaff. The final result was that the whole unit came to hate Lith's guts. He held himself back just enough to appear human and completed all of them with ease. Chapter 349. While the others cleared an obstacle course's time after several attempts, he only needed one. If running around the camp with a full backpack left them exhausted and drenched in sweat, Lith came out as fresh as a daisy. The group had no meaning to him. He knew that after 6 months they would be split according to their results. They had to wake up before sunrise every day, with only half an hour to clean the barracks, prepare the uniforms for the day, and personal hygiene. Lith used chore magic to perform his share in less than 5 minutes, leaving him plenty of time for a hot shower and a good shave without cutting himself multiple times. Time was a luxury, yet he could afford it. Before breakfast, they performed individual physical training led by the sergeant, but no matter what exercise he chose, Lith would breeze through it like a walk in the park. The most relaxing moment of the day was the 2 hours of lessons that followed breakfast. During that time, they would be taught about the drills they would perform in the following days, military strategy, or about the Army's values, traditions, and ethics. After that, the real nightmare began. "Who here has hand-to-hand combat experience?" Tepper asked. Lith raised his hand in response, like usual. His achievements left the sergeant as amazed as annoyed. How the heck does someone so young have already so much experience? Did I waste my life, or what? Was one of his most recurring thoughts. No matter if you are tall or short, male or female, combat techniques are devised to allow the weak to beat the strong, to overcome the difference in weight, height, or both. A skilled soldier can easily take down any untrained man. Tepper explained. "What if the opponent has our same level of skill?" asked Midden, the shortest girl in the unit. "Then either you beat them with tactics and fighting spirit, or you pray the gods to strike them down with a lightning bolt." No one liked that answer. Lith was one of the 3 who raised their hand, meaning he would probably go undefeated again. The exercise was a simple knife disarming technique that the sergeant demonstrated using Lywell as a sparring partner. The attacker would attempt to stab, while the defender had to dodge or block the knife, holding hand before grabbing the wrist and twist it together with the arm into a submission hold. In the first part of the training, everyone was required to win or lose according to their role in the scenario. It served the purpose to get acquainted with the technique and its footwork. In the second part, the attacker was allowed to resist and try to counter. That was when Lith shined the most. He wouldn't use speed or strength to win, but pure technique. As the attacker, the slightest mistake in controlling his arm would result in an elbow strike to the face, while focusing too much on his arm gave him the opportunity to use his legs to trip the opponent. Don't forget to move your legs, you idiots. The moment you stop moving, you are nothing but punching bags. As the defender, Lith used the smallest movements possible to disarm the opponent and get a hold of the knife. The next part of the training was about marksmanship and learning how to use magic wands as long-ranged weapons. Sir, why do we use wands instead of arrows or other kind of projectiles? Vipley was a skilled hunter. He was eager to show his talent, but he never used a wand before. Projectiles have been decommissioned ever since forge mastering was born. Sergeant Tepper was tempted to ask if someone knew why, but even he was sick of seeing Lith's hand. Even the most common enchanted armor is equipped with a gravity sheath that reacts to fast incoming objects, reducing their weight to the point of making them harmless as peas. Once, long-range weapons were devised to shoot high-speed projectiles like this one. Tepper took out what looked like a revolver from his dimensional amulet. He emptied the barrel against one of the training dummies wearing an old set of armor, producing a loud series of bangs. Most of the bullets hit the target, but without leaving a scratch. As you can see, this piece of junk is loud and clumsy. You need to train your aim and take into account a lot of factors, as the accuracy of the weapon itself, the distance from the target, the wind, the friction caused by the air, and so much more. Magic is energy and it's unaffected by such things, and even the gravity sheath is powerless against it. Only a physical barrier can block magic projectiles. Hence why you are equipped with earth magic wands. They can provide you instant protection from all threats. Not to mention that earth magic barriers are the only ones that can stop every other element. So many words just to say that force equals mass times acceleration. Enchanted armors reduce the already small mass of bullets, bringing it almost to zero. At that point, the speed becomes irrelevant. Anything times zero becomes zero too. Lith inwardly sighed. I dreamed for so long to make me a gun as a secret weapon, but after getting my uniform, I discovered the existence of the gravity sheath. It's amazing how forge mastering and alchemy allow imbuing rare things like fusion and gravity magic into the most common objects. I will teach you which wand is best to use according to the circumstances. As a rule of thumb, fire magic is better suited for open spaces and enemies grouped together. Lightning is particularly effective against heavy infantry, since it bypasses the metal's protection. Contrary to Tepper's expectations, Lith wasn't an expert with wands. His first attempts were almost as clumsy as everybody else's. His experience with magic, however, was top-notch, so it only took him a few tries before securing himself the best score. At the end of the first 4 weeks, each member of the unit received their report cards. Some, like Vipley, achieved a lot of As and BS, boosting his confidence and earning him the respect of the unit. Others, like Midden, received too many CS to let them dream of becoming members of an elite squad. Last but not least, Lith had no idea what his own report card meant. I'm sorry, sir. I think there has been a mistake with my grades, he asked, handing the piece of paper to his commanding officer. It seems normal to me, the sergeant replied. I'm sorry again, sir. I've attended another school in the past, but I never scored an M as a grade. What does it stand for? Monster. Chapter 350. That day, the mess hall was still open during the one free hour the cadets had between the end of their daily duty and the lights out. It was an opportunity for them to fraternize and get some extra food while celebrating the first evaluation. While the rest of the unit was waiting in line to get their snack, Lith was alone in the barracks, grumbling like usual. I really can't stand this place. The academy is a wet dream compared to the army. I get scolded every day, no matter how well I perform. The mess hall is so small that every unit is forced to eat in a rush, or others will not get their turn before resuming their duty. I don't give a damn about the sergeant insulting all of us for no reason, but what really drives me insane is when they make us stand at attention until someone moves, so they get to punish us. Everything is designed to be a frigging torture, he thought. I think it's on purpose to train the cadets both physically and mentally. You said it yourself. It's only under critical circumstances that people reveal their true selves and reevaluate themselves. Solus tried to cheer him up with some of his favorite food. After checking with Mana since no one was in the proximity, she took out a steaming steak from her pocket dimension. Lith was so used to fast eating that he finished half of it without even feeling its taste before slowing down. What about the MS in my report card? Even grades sound like an insult here. Maybe they didn't expect someone to break past the S rank. Solas sighed. Usually, she liked to rebuke at Litha's complaints, but this time she had a hard time not joining him. The army was putting even her patience to test. More importantly, why didn't you join your comrades? The sergeant always speaks about camaraderie. If you keep being a loner, it may affect your evaluation. And waste my only free hour of the day together with people that can't stand me, and vice versa? For what? To get some insipid food, I'd have to swallow like an ostrich. Lith didn't have time to waste, not even for nagging. He cleaned his boots and squared his uniforms for the following day before being finally able to rest. Even if he didn't sweat as much as his comrades, he was forced to change uniform after every meal. He was also forced to use his free time to keep them clean and ready for use. It didn't take him much since magic could take care of most of his daily chores in a matter of minutes. It was all the little things that piled up together, grinding his nerves one day at a time. Lith had underestimated the army and its regulations. In the past years, he had got too used to being admired, respected, and most importantly, left alone when he wanted. The total lack of privacy made him want to kill someone on a daily basis. While the physical exercises were far too easy for him, the mental strain was enormous. Gods know if I'd love to kick his ass back to the dragon who birthed him. Sergeant Tepper shivered despite the officer's mess hall being warm and cozy. Are you speaking about the monster? The other sergeants didn't share his pessimism. Lith was a mystery to everyone, but a really promising one. I could take cocky recruits. Heck, I eat spoiled rich kids for breakfast. What really creeps me out is that he not only seems to already know everything, but also how he stares at you when you scold or question him about his duties. No matter how much mana or aggression I use, he doesn't flinch. He just stands there with those cold, lifeless eyes. I swear that once I had the impression he was about to rip my head off and shove it up my ass. Tepper had it right. Lith took the army's love as a personal affront. He wasn't cut out to be a soldier. Loyalty, discipline, and obedience were mere words to him. Why don't you fail him then? Rule number 1, always follow your gut. As seasoned veterans, they wouldn't underestimate a fellow officer's evaluation. Giving training to sociopaths was like handing matches and oil to a pyromaniac. I can't. He sighed. He never falls for any provocation, and his performance is outstanding. His psychic evaluation is a bit lacking, but well within parameters. Litha's unit hated his guts, but most of all, they were scared of him. His barracks mates had learned the hard way that catching him unprepared was impossible. Lith slept only once a week thanks to invigoration, and even when he did, Solas stood guard. The one time they attempted to pull a practical joke on him, he emitted killing intent non-stop for 3 consecutive nights, making it impossible for them to rest. One of them even collapsed due to exhaustion and had to be hospitalized. The worst part was they still had no idea who he actually was. Litha's mastery of chore magic was that typical of a magician, yet he fought like the heir of a military family and performed his daily chores with more skill than most commoners. Good morning, maggots. I hope you rested well, because today you'll start learning about swordsmanship. Wands are not suited for close combat, and knives are either the last resort or something to perform a sneak attack. Pick from the rack a weapon you want to learn how to use. Sergeant Tepper was charming as usual. After the cadets made their choice, Tepper continued his explanation. The difference between an amateur and an idiot lies in their mushy brain. Only an idiot would pick a weapon too big or too heavy to use. This isn't a damn bard tale. He yelled at those who chose their weapon based on how cool it looked. Bigger doesn't mean better. Just like using 2 swords isn't necessarily better than using 1. Cadet Lith, how did you choose your weapon? I simply looked for a single-handed weapon light enough for me to use it without effort. Lith was holding a rapier. You see that? That's the difference between an idiot and a damn amateur. At least the amateur has a brain. The sergeant ripped the improper weapons off the cadets' hands and replaced them with rapiers and estocks. Now, the difference between an amateur and a good swordsman lies in the wrist. Whereas an amateur will limit themselves to stabs and slashes, making their attacks predictable, a good swordsman is capable of executing multiple strikes from the same starting position. Tepper crossed his sword with Lith, and while keeping his arm, still the sword struck at Litha's head, right shoulder, and leg in quick succession. Litha's rapier followed suit, timely blocking each strike while keeping his blade against the point of the sergeant's to multiply the block's effectiveness. Each parry would have been enough to disarm a less skilled opponent. "Let me guess. Your father taught you," Tepper said with a snarl. He had hoped to humble the monster for once. "No, my girlfriend did," Lith replied, keeping his eyes on the sergeant's shoulder rather than the blade. Floria had kicked his ass until the basics had become second nature to Lith.